Oh, did you call in before?
No. I think this is my first time. I think my
Okay,
first
cool.
exposure to you has been through the Hunter drama.
Oh man, I think if you just type in Hunter Avalone, I mean, I haven't really watched too many people's assessment on it, but if you don't like the guy, you should probably listen to my opinions on him.
They indeed have been vicious. I'll I might have laughed a few times, but I always shook my head no while I was laughing, so people around me knew that I felt bad.
Oh, did you react to it on a video or
No,
something?
no, no, no. I'm
Oh,
fucking around. I'm just like, but no. It seems like you is BX Beast Boy a part of the war band, or is he anyway affiliated
I
with
think
the
he's just
group?
I think he's just a fan.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so it seems like once I started falling down the anti-hunter content rabbit hole,
Mm.
I was bumping into your content, I was bumping into BX Beast Boys content, and no, I mean it's been interesting. The only thing that I would say is like maybe it's a little bit more mean than what I would typically go for, but it does remind me of I'm a little bit older. I'm in my 30s now. It does
Hmm.
remind me of the ways that like guys talk shit in the 2000s.
Yeah,
So it was almost like refreshing in a way.
yeah. I kind of like to go for I like to go for roast humor, and like I don't expect Hunter to laugh about it. It's really hard for someone to laugh about them getting roasted, but I try to make it. I try to make it less. F this guy, he's stupid. I try to make it funny at least when I'm insulting someone.
It would be, I think it would be hard to come back on some of these insults, but I think that more has to do with the situation than anything else. So it's kind of
Yeah,
brutal.
he was calling me out on Twitter when when the divorce was announced, and I streamed about it because I think I talked to him 11 months ago,
Hmm.
and it was a shit show. It was like the morning after I had a little spar with Destiny and Lauren Southern, and I
Mm.
was majorly hungover and I had to deal with Hunter. He's going pure debate, bro. I can respect Destiny a little bit. He doesn't do the typical like, let's argue about the definition of a word for 30 minutes.
Hmm.
But Hunter was all about that life. So, he's yelling at me, calling me beta, screaming at me to shut up. And I think after like an hour and a half, I'm like, this conversation's kind of run through its usefulness. I'm just gonna leave. I'm not gonna sit here and have some extremely falsetto sounding dude yell at me to shut up when, at that point I think I had twice as many viewers as him. And it's not like a flex, it's just he had half a million YouTube subs. He's acting like he's doing me a favor by talking to me and screaming like a little kid. So I was like, nah, it's not enough. So I hung up on him. He was like, call me an incel in the Discord DMs. And then I promised him 11 months ago, I said, when you get divorced, I'm going to do a divorce party live stream. So I did the live
Fuck.
stream. Yeah, I did the live stream. And
Yep.
then during the stream, I think that's when Kingston Hawk emailed me. He's like, dude, set up a debate and drop these receipts. And before I could set
Jeez.
it up, he dropped them himself, which I looked at it and because when Hunter was like doing his tweets about I'm gonna hit people with the cops and YouTube for revenge porn, I thought he was talking to me.
Hmm.
I don't put anything below like what these leftist debate bros do or like these YouTube guys do. So I thought he was gonna like call the cops on me, and I'm not trying to get doxxed or exposed. So I took him down, but he was really talking about Kingston. But I looked at Kingston's video. I'm like, ooh, maybe the text you could have shown, but even the blurred out images of Carissa's coochie, that's probably liable for something.
Yeah, it's obviously pretty rough, and I wouldn't mind having a response right there, but I actually see the wife with the kiddo. I'm supposed to watch the kiddo while she's getting a few hours of sleep. So can I be excused for 30 seconds or so?
No, you're fine. Hey, just let me know. Yeah.
All right, I'll be right back.
So what's up in the chat, guys? What we got here? Tasha Pi says if it was a real thing, it should have never gotten debunked in the first place, unless a debunked wasn't a debunked at all. Okay. Super Turbo Death Shark says subs are one thing, engagement is another. Hunter has a very poor engagement because he's disingenuous grifter. I think what he did was he went from a right wing, destroy all the cucks, I love Trump, to the complete opposite. And you can pivot a little bit, but if you pivot 180, you're just going to have a lot of people who are sub to you that never want your channel, and that destroys you in the algorithm. Like if I went straight to feminist content, um, 10 reasons why feminism is the best. 50 reasons why you should convince teenage women to vote. That kind of stuff. I don't think I'd ever really, I don't think I'd pop more than 1,000 views a video, and my channel will probably be dead at 50,000 subs. Joshua Colton says Carissa's roast beef makes me want to avoid Arby's for a while. Arby's got a sewer, guys. Arby's got to sue Carissa for posting that up on Twitter. Ugh. What else we got in the chat? Maniac Man says, yes, ED, and he's too polite during bunga time. Yeah, so he's too polite during sex. Yeah, he's too polite. He's like, is this okay? Is this okay? Then he's got erectile dysfunction. And then it's, the things that she did to her husband is just, I couldn't even attempt to hurt him the way that his wife hurt him. And I'm just going to call Carissa his wife because the divorce isn't settled and he still refers to her as his wife. So who knows what's going on with that, guys? Who knows what's going on with that? You just chime in whenever you want to, man. I wasn't looking at the StreamYard.
Yeah, I'm of course I'm using my small child as a human shield. So whenever you're dealing with orcs, you have to line up line up lines of infantry for them to be consumed. That way you can stab back. So
what's that debate tactic? He's just
it's called human shields. So
you can't tell me that I have an infant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the opposite of the ad hominem. We'll come up with the term,
okay,
but
cool.
But no. So what I would say, or the reason why I was interested in having a conversation is just because obviously the Hunter thing is interesting, but I did feel like you were kind of taking shots at the way that he had conducted himself personally. Especially in debates, and I do think that there's something to be said for always remaining humble. You never know how life is going to come your way. But then I also noticed that it seemed like the creators in the warband or whatever, it was a very masculine focus. We're going to focus on ourselves. We're going to develop ourselves. We're Redpill. There's a whole bunch of people out here who are not representing themselves properly. Lauren Southern being one of them. And so I was kind of curious. I like to think of myself as trying to develop positive masculinity. How are you developing the warband, the creators, the fandom, the audience? What's the whole philosophy behind it, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. So I think you described yourself as authoritarian centrist, right? Or was that a meme?
It's kind of a meme, but I will tell you, the fringe left and the fringe right are very frustrating to me. And so I've always tried to be very nice and accommodating and try to always see something from different people's perspectives. But nobody really does that for me. So at this point, I just want to call them retarded and, try to force them to come my way.
Now. That's a slur. Hey, if I lose my channel for you saying that slur, I'm going to want... I don't know anything about Warhammer, but you got to send me some kind of Warhammer figurine as an apology.
Okay, I have some unpainted orcs, so I'll send you some unpainted orcs.
Perfect. But yeah. So I guess when it comes to philosophy, it gets mixed up. So I was going to say I brought up your political leanings because I'm sure you get called a Republican by a bunch of leftists online. You probably get called a Democrat or a commie by a bunch of right-wingers online. It's kind of the same thing going on in the red pill space. It's I kind of accept the label red pill, but for me, and when I talk to my associates about red pill, it's just what do you think of when you think red pill? I think of some dude who is a failed real estate agent, or he sells used cars. He's 38, maybe had a divorce, or maybe he's goes to the gym twice a week. He's I'm going to make a YouTube podcast where I talk about all the women I get and how I'm so red pilled, fresh and fit. I hate that. Pathetic. Who else we got? Donovan Sharp, Rolo Tomato, or Rolo Tomasi. I call him Rolo Tomato. They're all red pill, but they're just kind of profiting off of sexually disenfranchised young men. But so I don't consider myself red pill like those guys, but I'm not going to fight someone on a definite, someone calls me red pill. I'm why do you think of that? I guess the one standard I hold up, which is kind of unique, which is funny, is the no hymen, no diamond, right? So you got Seamus Coughlin going on Timcast IRL, talking about how he's such a good Catholic boy. He's so traditional, and then says, God calls you to marry non-virgins. I just kind of puke in my mouth a little bit. It's these red pill podcasts. You got degenerates, right? Where like dudes with daddy's money, wearing sunglasses, they're all smoking cigars. I should have gone into pulmonology to be a lung doctor because there's going to be so much fucking lung cancer coming out with these fools smoking cigars every day, saying they're red pill and base, and they're fighting Christians who are marrying non-virgin women, and they're not really aggressive at all in any of their tenets, saying no, they're red pill and base, and I kind of laugh at both of them. So I think the one thing I would say is the no hymen, no diamond probably sets me apart. But I took a political compass test and I'm actually on the origin. So I guess I'm a radical centrist, whatever the hell that means.
But then let me ask about the no hymen, no diamond thing. So is that a philosophy where you're trying to find a debt-free, no tattoo virgin? Is that like in spirit, or is it literally like until I find a virgin woman who's worthy of me marrying her, I'm not settling down? And then also, what's your view of hookup culture? Because I felt like from some of the stuff that I was watching, it seemed like you at least had participated in hookup culture in the past, or
Mm-hmm.
kind of laughed about it. How you're
Yeah.
participating in it now. So
So
I was just
the
kind of
go,
wondering
go
how
on.
that incorporates.
Yeah. So the no hymen, oh, is it the debt free, tattoo-less virgin? What's the fourth one? They want young, debt free, tattoo-less virgins. That was like the article that made everybody lose their shit a couple years ago, right?
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I support it. I like tattoos on a woman, but she has tattoos. It's like, I've never met a virgin with tattoos. I guess the only virgins I met with tattoos, I'd say some of them maybe are like the church girls that will have like some lame Bible verse tattooed on the side of their foot, or like on their wrist they can cover it up with a watch. But like biker tattoos or like rib tattoos or tramp stamps, it's like, they're probably not virgins. Debt free would be nice. Um, I mean, I guess it depends on how much debt. Those things are variable, but the virgin thing for marriage and kids, that's an iron rule. That's why I say the no hymen, no diamond.
Well,
Okay.
and then have you bumped into virgins in the past, and have you deflowered these virgins, or is this just somebody that you're looking for?
I probably, I don't know, like 3 or 4 V cards were stamped, right? I think 3 or 4 V cards were stamped, and I was in relationships with them, and I dumped them because they didn't want the same things I wanted. One of them didn't want kids. One of them wanted to get a PhD. And so I'm like, well, if you're not gonna, I'm trying to meet a virgin to build a family. If they're not trying to build a family, they're useless. So like, doesn't matter that I took the hymen. Um, there's going to be no kids from that marriage, and I'm still at risk of divorce. So, it's like a hammer that's broken but has a really nice handle. It's like, well, it's a nice handle, but there's no head to the hammer.
Yeah, so I guess my where I would differentiate is I'm okay with not wanting like a high body count or whatever. I think there's a correlation between like the level of promiscuity that people engage in, and then whether or not they're capable of like a long term relationship that's committed, and whether or not they're going to be wondering about something else going on, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's that many debt free tattoo-less virgins out there. And
I mean, you can just
then
say virgins, and that's you just say virgins. That's the one
All right, fine.
category that
I
really
don't think
destroys
there's I don't think there's that many virgins out there, and then I think that kind of like your situation, the dating situation is so casual these days that if you're looking for a virgin, I think you said that you're like for 3 for settling down with these gals because they want completely different things. So
hmm
I guess my tepid pushback, and I promise I'm not trying to be tepid,
No, you're
but
fine.
would just be like that for a healthy chunk of the population, this would be an unrealistic expectation, and they could probably find a girl with like under 3 body count who still wanted a family.
No, it's definitely hard. I mean, oh, what is it? I can't cite the Bible. I can't cite the verse. I think it's somewhere in Proverbs. It says, "What's a worthy wife worth? She's worth
Mm.
more than her weight in rubies." Yeah, it's a priceless gift. Right? It's something that you can strive for. Most dudes, they're never gonna prescribe or subscribe, either or,
Mm.
to the no hymen, no diamond philosophy. I mean, a lot of them will like roast versions for being inexperienced. When I do like debates with Chud Logic, he was like telling, what was it, Chud Logic? I don't forget. But most of those guys, they're like, I want a girl with experience so she knows what she's doing. It's like, oh man, I didn't know it. You guys had to read a couple books to know how to do missionary, but I'm just saying it wasn't too difficult for me to figure it out. But you know, you got to be willing to date younger. You got to be willing to date 18-year-old, 19-year-old. You got to be willing to, you know, date a chick for a couple months and get no puniti. Right? It's like I want to, and there's so many different philosophies and like types of thinking of what the best high value woman is in the manosphere that people will say, why do red pill guys demand a virgin and then get upset after not having sex after 3 dates? It's like those are two different people. The
Mhm.
dudes that want sex in 3 dates are not expecting a virgin, right? The guys who want to date and marry a virgin, they're probably going to be okay with not having sex towards until marriage. But you know, it's you got to change how you view dating too. It's you can't be dating a chick for like what 4, 5, 6 years. And you know, it's
Mm.
like I want to date a virgin for 4, 5, 6 years. Why? Because I want a lot of healthy kids. Well, every year you wait, those eggs are dropping down the toilet every month. You know, those eggs are getting older. So what are you really trying to do?
So what? So the I do have a friend who's relatively red pill, and actually he's gone like traditional Catholic, which I think is kind of interesting. But
Mm,
he's largely abstinent, and he used to be, you know, hooking up with gals casually, all that kind of stuff. Didn't really believe in God, didn't really believe in any kind of tradition or institution or organization or discipline besides the military. And then I would say that once he went like trad cath red pill or whatever, he was kind of like, hey, I don't want to contribute to the degeneration of society. As a result, I'm going to abstain myself. And
mhm,
so he has largely, and he has maintained a certain amount of discipline. And he's kind of saying that like that discipline has helped him become a little bit more enlightened when it comes to sex and relationships. Because when you're focused on just trying to get laid, trying to get laid, trying to get laid, trying to get laid, you're ignoring all of the red flags that a woman might be presenting to you. Whereas if you're kind of waiting to see whether or not you're compatible, you're actually infinitely more aware of the potential faults of that person. So if you're, are you married at this point?
oh hell no, no, my finger is free.
Okay. So you're still waiting on your princess. Is
Or you know, just acquiring
mm,
resources to go buy her.
okay. And are I think I bumped into the term like passport bro or something like that. So is passport bro is that like as far as I understand it, that's like Western men who are tired of the degeneracy of the West. As a result, they go into more traditional cultures and then they find somebody to marry from there. Is that a potential future consideration for you?
Some of them kind of view it like that. You know, some of them are like, it's too degenerate here. You know, there's no virgins here, or you know, but there's also other ones that are just like, I just want to get you know, I want to get puniti a lot easier. You know, they fly to Thailand to get easy puniti, so they're not
Mm,
really escaping Western degeneracy. I think the overall thing for passport bros they all can agree with is women are easier to deal with outside of the U.S. I think that's the only thing that binds them together. But some of them, you know, it's been around for what 50, 60 years. I mean, dudes from Vietnam pulling their, you know, going to Vietnam, getting a Vietnamese wife, you know, white guys going to Asia, black guys going to Russia or China. I think just recently it became like a social media movement. And it's because a couple of these YouTube channels popped off of these mostly African American dudes saying like, "Oh my gosh, the women in Brazil are so much better. All the women in Thailand are so much better. You guys need to come out here. I got 3 girlfriends." You know, it's like a fantasy that young men who are not sexually successful will, you know, they want to be exposed to it, provide, you know, have some kind of goal, form a community, and those are the guys that also like, you know, subscribe to the pickup artists. So,
mhm.
you know, those were the ones that were giving Jack Murphy his money back in the day when he was still calling around.
Sorry, I was remembering the thumbnail for the hunter thing, and I was also remembering the 2 minute music music video of
Or
the
that like
horror
meme
band,
video of the raid.
yeah, rating Jack Murphy's chat. That was pretty fucking funny. Which, by the way, like I was tangentially like aware of that thing going down, but I didn't know that it was the, you know, the UC crowd or whatever.
Yeah,
So
we don't get a lot of credit, but we just like to see the cucks fall. That's what we're here for.
see, yeah, so I guess that was my question. So you're saying no hymen, no diamond is kind of like the cornerstone of the philosophy. You're not necessarily into being promiscuous for its own sake, but you're not 100% against it.
I
Uh,
mean, it's like, you know, your friend who decided to go and be celibate after, I mean, I don't know, let's just say he had a body count of 10, he had some girlfriends or let's say girlfriends and like 20 hookups, right? It's
Yeah.
completely it's a completely different situation if you're like in your mid 20s or even early 30s. You're like, I'm gonna hold off on sex until I find a right woman, compared to the dudes who have never had sex, have never had a girlfriend, have never had any kind of positive female attention. And like you're telling them that the analogy I use is like all the dudes are in the desert, right? And some guys, they're crawling, you're all army crawling, they get to an oasis. It's women. Oh my God, women, I finally get a and they go down and they drink it, and it's like a sewage outlet, and they're just like, oh, they're like, oh, you got to get away. So they start crawling away, and they see dudes just crawling in circles in the desert, asking where the oasis is. And go, don't
Mhm.
go there, guys. It's full of sewage. They say, screw you, bro. I've never even seen it. So that's like what the
Yeah.
incels or the, I don't want to use incel as like a negative term, but like sexually unsuccessful men in the West, like they'll do anything. They'll pay for any stupid program to have a chance um, at sexual access. And I see dudes that, even the guys that I don't say don't get laid, but they don't get female attention or relationships to like 23, 24, 25. There's some point there where even if they get a girlfriend at 25 and they're no longer an incel, they've been denied or unable to obtain female sexual attention through their most raging hormonal years. They never get over it, right?
Mhm.
Like all these pickup artists, they always talk about how I was like unsuccessful in high school, wasn't until like halfway through college or after college, and now it's like you talk to them like, why are you, what do you value in life? They're just like, I want to bang hot chicks every night. It's like high school dudes talk like that. Like no adult man is like, I want to have sex with different beautiful women every night, and that's why I'm on Earth. It just sounds pathetic. Like I just can't respect that kind of viewpoint.
Yeah, no, so if it seems like I'm constantly trying to re-summarize your worldview back to you, it's just because I want to make sure that I'm understanding it properly.
No, you do it fine, man.
Yeah, but no hymen, no diamond, and then also kind of making fun of like cucks, so people who are buying into the progressive degeneracy where they're like, I don't care about body count, I'll hook up with whoever, I'm just down for whatever, blah 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 blah, which ultimately does feel like a kind of cope. And then also the cope on the red pill side, which is I didn't get laid for a healthy chunk of time, but I've never they back in my day. I'll use a YouTube friendly word, wussy, putting
Mhm.
wussy on a pedestal, right? You
Yeah.
know, it's an alliteration. So there's obviously an entire part of male culture where you don't focus on your personal development, you don't worry about your physical development, you don't worry about your employment, you don't worry about finding your wife, you don't worry about building a legacy or anything cool. All you do is you worship the idealized version of womanhood, but then effectively what you're doing is you're chasing an experience that kind of like a desert oasis is ethereal. Like you can catch it and it's never really fully what you thought it was, and then you turn around and like you said, you tell the other people, hey, it's not an oasis, it's just like a puddle, and like I'm happy I'm not as thirsty anymore, but this isn't going to be the end all be all of your experience in life, whereas people who have never
Mhm.
experienced it at all, they're still going to be chasing the oasis.
Yeah, and when it comes to when I'm talking about the guys that are just obsessed with getting new women all the time, I really see it in pickup artists, and those are the ones who kind of co-opted Red Pill, or like, I don't know, I haven't listened to the only time I listened to Andrew Tate was when he was talking about how reading books make you a coward, and
Yeah.
I didn't get the sense that he was joking about it. People are saying, "Oh, this is how he jokes," and I'm like, so I don't like Andrew Tate. He started his career off running a campsite, and he would sext, like he pretended to be a woman and sex dudes that were beating off. So I don't consider him reasonable or admirable at all. I'm actually happy he's in prison. Um, yeah, I don't like him, but
No,
I think
if I can jump in on that,
yeah,
I actually get really frustrated with aspects of the right, because obviously you can be critical of the right wing, you can be critical of Republicans, you can be critical of conservatives, you can be critical of this, that, the other. But I don't think it's ever been conservative to defend a Eastern European pimp. And just because the Eastern European pimp is encouraging young men to be more masculine, I've
yeah.
seen a shitload of Republicans and conservatives defend Andrew Tate. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like in no other
I
situation
think a lot of
would
them
we
are kind
defend
of like,
this.
I think a lot of them aren't defending the fact, like they're not defending those actions. They're more like defending the fact that like the charges might have been trumped up, but they don't think there's anything behind it. or he's like banned on all these things. They're just like, it's kind of like the same way Tim Pool will defend leftists that get banned off of YouTube. He's just like, I disagree with them, but they should still have a right to speak.
Hmm.
um like if you talk to the right wing tent's very large. It's just the section of the right wing tent that does not like that degeneracy. Most of them are older, they're more religious, and they're not on YouTube. They're not on social media. But if I went up to my dad and I told him, there's like this right wing guy that says some good things, but he started his career by running like an prostitution service. He smokes cigars and brags about how awesome he is, and now he's going to jail for sex trafficking, and it might not be real. Shouldn't we donate to his legal fund? My dad would backhand me.
Yeah.
He's like, "What are you? Shut up."
Yeah. Um, yeah. No, that's I find there's a lot of false idols these days, but that's where I partially think that the what so actually I'd be really curious about your opinion of Jordan Peterson. So I think that dude's lost his fucking mind recently,
I
and
think the
it's
recent
probably
tweet I saw was
Mhm.
I think Elon and Zuckerberg are gonna like do a cage fight, right?
Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson literally tweeted, "I was like, I think they should do it without clothes and an oil like smiley face." I'm like, is his daughter tweeting or is he just off the
Yo.
benzos? No, I don't.
Yeah, and
He,
and that's the kind of thing. It's like where if you were a 17-year-old shit poster, that would be one thing, but you're supposed to be like the philosophical cornerstone of like centrist Enlightenment
I have a
era Western
doctorate. I have a
philosophy.
doctorate in clinical psychology. Clinical psychology. Oh, you mean the ones that aren't actually doctors? Oh, real clinical. Okay.
Well,
No, I don't. Some
uh,
of his stuff is good, but I mean, clean your room. Wow, that's a genius. Like I haven't heard that before. Um,
well,
I
okay.
think.
So
Yeah, go on. Where are
sorry.
you going?
Yeah. So I was gonna say the thing about the clean your room memes or whatever. I think that that part of the reason why I appreciated his contribution to like the political online zeitgeist, like 2016 to 2018 or so, is because I think that there's this hopelessness in the Western world where you just kind of decide that nothing matters. Like if they, I don't know if you're religious, but like people decide that there's no God, the institutions that we have are all corrupt. The United States government is lying to us about everything all the time. I've
Mhm.
heard you talk about like the bachelor tax, like how the system is kind of rigged in certain ways to screw you over.
Yep.
So ultimately, there's a lot of hopeless people out there. But then what I liked about the clean your room thing is one, starting simple, but then two, realizing that the world is constantly in a state of entropy, and
Yep.
human beings, by their nature, seem to be creatures of order, where they like to put things back together. And as a result, it's your job as a human being not to wake up and have, like, snort a line of Adderall and then just go through your day being the perfectly
Damn.
100% productive person, but
Yeah.
just to take one thing that's broken and fix that one thing. And if you can't start with the small things that are around you, then kind of how dare you have the hubris to think that you could change the biggest things around you? And I always felt like that was a really well made point.
No, he definitely made a lot of good points. I think in his early years, the reason why he was such a positive influence was he was a man who was well spoken, had a degree. I know I just shat on his degree, but I'm going to assume clinical psychologists do good jobs in some aspects. He had a degree, is well spoken. He obviously thought about this kind of his theories a lot, and he came out and he was like talking mostly to young men, and young men was like, "Wow, there's like a successful elderly man I could look up to who's not my father." Because my father said these similar things: clean your room, get your stuff together, that kind of stuff. But he also did this, this, and this. It's whereas they see Jordan Peterson, it's like, oh, he's like almost like a prophet out there telling you, we can get through this. There's a positive message. I don't really think a lot of his viewpoints haven't been talked about before. It's just maybe he collected a bunch of them and kind of packaged it in the right way that young men would appreciate. Because tons of self-help gurus or self-help books, they'll all tell you that don't compare yourself to other people, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. That's one of the most common kind of ideas. I mean, I was hearing that when I was 12. This is when Jordan Peterson says it. A lot of his fanboys back in the day, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is like new information," but it's just the fact their father or their coach didn't tell them that. It was this academic guy in a suit. So I
Well,
guess he
I
serves a purpose.
well, I think you presume a little bit more too. There's a I think that you're right that if you had a coach or a paternal figure or a father in your life then you would hear these kind of messages to the point that they were platitudes. But I
Hmm.
also think that there's a lot of young men out there because I mean I don't know about like the single family rate, but I know it's like quadrupled over the past like 50
I
years.
know more. I know the majority of children in the U.S. are born to single mother households now.
Right, which is fucking insane. But
Yeah.
so even if so let's just assume that that's true. Like 51% of
Hmm.
children, which we have to assume a healthy chunk of are boys or men, are being born to single mothers because I think it's like the ratio is like 90% single mother to 10% single father.
Yeah.
So let's just say that that's true. Then they might have like an uncle or a teacher or somebody like that who is able to give them a parcel of that kind of knowledge. And then
Hmm.
some of them will even have absent fathers where like the father will pay the bills but doesn't provide any kind of like moral or spiritual guidance. So that's where for me, I think it's okay to say that these things have all been said and done before, but I think that there needs to be a continual cultural reinforcement of these concepts because the truth is, you look at broad culture and it almost hates this as a philosophy and a concept if you're looking at Hollywood or Disney or any of those like broad cultural forces.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. I mean, I think that the I'll say work that he did the first couple years he was out, kind of pushing that message, had a positive influence on a lot of men. And you said I was presuming, like, yeah, no, I did, right? I mean, I grew up in a single father household, which, if you look at the statistics, they perform just as good as two parent households, or in some studies they perform better. So not everybody has a father. I can acknowledge that. So I kind of like I think of Jordan Peterson like HIV education, right? We should always be educating the rainbow community about HIV, because when HIV came on the scene and AIDS was going crazy, it was a lot of confusion. Then we started learning about it and we educated them about it, and HIV rates plummeted. Now, if you talk about how HIV is a scourge on the rainbow community, you get called a bigot. And if you look at the stats, HIV is shooting up in those communities. There's no education. There's got to be continual education because these young gay guys, they're not seeing ads, they're not seeing education. They don't know how much of
No,
a
you
bitch
you know
HIV is.
the ad that they're seeing because I've seen this ad
The prep ad.
is yeah, it's just take this pill, even before you have unprotected sex and you don't even have to worry about HIV and don't worry about the fact that it like, has all these negative side effects. Excuse me. But just take this pill and then you don't even have to worry about it. It's like Jesus Christ, like why is that like obviously the answer is money, but like why are we encouraging any part of our community to say, "Hey, take this pill and then you can just basically bang as much as you want to without condoms and not worry about HIV?" Why is
Yeah,
that a cultural encouragement?
the old advertisements for the prep pill was like directed to like gay couples, or one had HIV and one didn't, and they'd be like, take this to get your viral load down. You won't pass it to your partner. And
Right.
now it's kind of like used as a tool for promiscuity. And I mean, look, people think that the prep's going to work forever. They have different HIV strains that get resistance to different HIV drugs. Imagine we get to the point where we basically expose HIV to all of our known medications, to the point where you'll get super HIV that can't respond, and then you'll start seeing AIDS again. AIDS will start popping up. It's like, if it's resistant to everything, it's like telling people, hey, just take Augmentin, take penicillin before or after you bang a chick. And all the dudes out to the clubs, before they go to the club, they take like an antibiotic with a shot. Yeah, those drugs are going to be useless in 10 years.
Yeah, and so I'm not as the reason why I'm not as like doomer pilled or whatever that like a super disease is going to come and wipe us out. Although we did just have the super flu just come and wipe out a healthy chunk of people. The the reason why I'm not as pessimistic is just because it seems like humanity has lived through a bunch of apocalypses. If you're looking at the bubonic plague or like the Mongol invasions or the sack of Rome or something like that, these would all be apocalyptic events from the perspective of people who are living through them. But it does seem that humanity always has like the possibility of bouncing back. So that's where like all I can do is raise my family. I have two kids. I got a wife. I think we're planning on dying together. So we're in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
But but I do think that liberalism, I'm okay with liberalism as a philosophy for governing, where we say, if you're not hurting anybody else, we'll let you do you. But I do think that there's a cultural failure in which you can't even, under like a liberal progressive view on culture, you can't even criticize bad behavior. Where if you say, hey, rainbow community, it's probably not enough just to take PrEP. As a matter of fact, you want to make sure that the PrEP efficacy stays up for the people who might get injured or killed as a result of HIV. You
Hmm.
also need to not be wildly promiscuous, and you might need to use contraception while you're having sex. Which is like, why are you telling me what to do? And it's like, fuck me, man. Like to anybody else, this is basic personal responsibility, but you're acting like
I'm
it's an
not sure I'll
attack
be telling
against
these
you.
people who are upset and promiscuous to fuck you because I'm not sure if they're actually taking their prep, man. So you gotta watch your words.
Well, yeah, no, but you legitimately have a point there because people who that would be like one of my pattern analysis is for how do these people let's say that you have like prep as like a common thing, who's also saying that they're taking prep or they're taking this drug or they're taking that drug, but out of laziness they don't. And so as a result, everybody's supposedly being safe, but they're actually not.
Yeah, well, I think there's a study showing that dogs are more compliant with their medications than humans because humans will make sure their dog takes whatever they're given. But
Mm.
when it comes, I don't know, like the liberal philosophy of live and let live for the government, I mean, this is where it takes us. Like it's 2023, and we got people, actually arguing for the right to um, castrate 3-year-olds. So it's
Well,
kind of like if I don't know, I guess I'm not a fan of it.
Well, in defense of the transes in my community or whatever, it's get them up to. By the way, not necessarily that I agree with this, but get them up to 10 to 12. Put them on puberty blockers for 2 to 3 years. Have them transition hormones up until a certain age, and then do surgeries when they're higher teenagers. That's the.
I mean,
Mm.
you're still castrating them if you're putting them on puberty blockers at 12.
I I would view transition as a issue of ultimate last resort, where I would want to know that it's like this person, it this is the best outcome. I wouldn't want to. I think the stereotype or the joke amongst like conservatives is like, oh, you have a boy that likes pink, or you have a girl that likes monster trucks, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, time to socially transition you, change your gender and change your pronouns and dress you in different clothes. Like, obviously, I'm not for any of that kind of crap.
Yeah, I kind of view it. I mean, I guess I could cite the study, but it was pulled down, so I could get an archive of it. But they were showing, I think they were studying high schoolers somewhere in the Northeast, and they're showing that transitioning. They had group basically. If you look at subgroups or subpopulations of like groups of teenagers in a high school,
Mm-hmm.
you got different cliques. As soon as one of the cliques had someone transition, it was like 80 or 90% of all the people in the high school for the next 4 years would transition from that one clique. Um,
Yeah.
and like the rates are going up. And people saying trans people always existed. I'm like, well, I think femboys and gay people always existed. And I think you're basically telling gay guys they're gonna, it's
They should be
better to
girls.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the battle that we're fighting out. So I have a problem that I don't have a solution for, but I'll just present it to you because I
All right.
think it's worth consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree. This is kind of like a Sitch and Adam take. Is that it seemed like in the 90s and the thousands, what we were doing through like a liberal philosophy of like individual expression is we were opening up the category of what it was to be a man or a woman. So if you were a feminine man or a masculine woman, we didn't just instantly say, "Oh, you're the opposite gender. Go ahead and take hormones and also go through serious surgeries." It
Mm-hmm.
seemed like we're like, well, maybe you're a lesbian or maybe you're gay or whatever, and you figure that out and then get back to us. The problem that I have that I don't have a solution for, and this is something that was presented to me, is it seems it seems like with trans men, so women who want to be men, they can
Mm-hmm.
take testosterone at any point and they will appear as men after 2 years. So for
Yes.
me, I don't think it's like that big of a deal to say, hey, wait till you're 18, maybe your gender dysphoria will desist, and then if after 18, I'm not going to stop you, take testosterone, you'll look like a dude in 2 years.
I mean, they'll look like a beta, like they'll be an extremely sexually unattractive man. Have you read any of the like the I'll say diary or posts from these trans men that are just absolutely miserable because they basically go from life on the easiest difficulty, being a tomboy, to like ultimate survival hardcore server. As soon as you spawn in, someone hacks and snipes you in the back of the head. A short man without a penis, an
Yeah,
incel.
but shouldn't you be yeah, but then at that point shouldn't you join the warband and start lifting weights? Like, so
I don't think
should
I don't think a lot of them would. I don't
enjoy
know if
being
I
in the
have any
warband?
trans.
I don't know.
I
Iron
don't think
iron
I have
sharp
any. I don't think
iron
I have any
sharpens iron,
trans.
okay? I'm joking, but
Well,
I'm
they
just
got. I
saying.
was no, they got no iron to sharpen. They just got it's just an empty forge down there. Unless they
Well,
get the surgery, then I don't know.
what I literally mean by that though, there's this pretty funny joke is which it's like Elliot Page, right? What was it? I forget her. Ellen Page was her original name, and then
Oh,
she
don't dead
transitioned
name
to
her. Oh, now my
she
stream's down.
transitioned to
Okay, continue.
Elliot Page with he/him pronouns.
Yes.
One of the funniest memes that I saw around that time was like, "Welcome to the better gender, Elliot Page," and it's like they're like high fiving like outside the wing stop or whatever. So like, so I've kind of joked about being like a trans inclusionary radical misogynist, but it's not because I love trans people. It's because I hate women. But
Yeah, I love that. There's that joke. Yeah, no, I've seen that before. It's just like I'm an ultimate misogynist. Women, ugh.
yeah,
Trans women, do you want to be a woman? Ugh. Trans men, you are a woman? Ugh. It's just yeah, I've seen that joke pass around a lot. You
nice.
continue.
Well, yeah. So, all right. So let's get to the problem. I've been dancing around it. So the problem is, let's say that there are binary trans people. They have something hormonally incorrect with them. Their brain, whatever. Who knows? They have persistent gender dysphoria. They were born male, but they want to be a woman. For me, the problem is that like male puberty is so hardcore that it seems like if you do hormone blockers in transition, you can actually present as a passing woman. Whereas if you don't do that, then you go through a bunch of pretty hardcore puberty effects that are hard to overcompensate at a later time in your life.
Yeah, I'd question the science behind, them saying that, I was born as a woman in a man's body. I think it's a social contagion. I think it's single white mothers or leftist mothers doing Munchausen by proxy. Because, there was a ton of degeneracy in the late Roman Empire. You had tons of dudes taking it through the back door. Didn't really read a lot about dudes cutting it off and taking it through a new front door, right? I mean, I think
I
these
don't think that was
dudes
like
could be
medically
feminine
possible
gay
at that
guys.
time.
What do you say?
I don't think that was medically possible at that time.
So trans people didn't exist until the technology appeared. Um,
Yeah.
look,
Actually, literally, like I think they were probably femme gay
femboy.
men and
No, they were they
masculine
were
women.
they were Greek city states that went to war over femboys. I'm not even kidding you.
Yeah. So
So I think and another thing I would say is like if there's any, if their mom's not telling them to do it, if TikTok's not doing it, and they're just like these young gay guys underage, like man, I really want to go for masculine dudes. I like dudes. Should I transition? Should I? There's a whole lot more freaks out there that are going to find you more attractive if you have the equipment than if you cut it off. So
well,
keep the equipment, dress in a skirt. I think the some of the top 10 OnlyFans content creators are actually femboys. So I
well,
mean, it's just like,
yeah, it's
whatever.
funny. Did you see that like Greek girl or that Italian girl that kind of looks like a Greek femboy?
I know people don't. Well, it's when it comes to male to female.
Uh-huh.
It's for me. It's like, and that's not happening to my son. I got another betting pool on Hunter
Mm.
Avallone's son in 18 years. He's gonna,
I
he's gonna lose
heard
that situation.
pretty vicious, but
Well, he supports the LGBT community, so he shouldn't have a problem with it.
I know. It's just like I think there's one thing to principally try to stand with LGBTQIA plus folk where you're just trying to say like, hey, listen, you're gay, I'm not gonna judge you for it, or hey, listen, you're trans, I'm not gonna judge you for it, versus wholeheartedly endorsing it as a path that you want to go down to excitedly.
Mhm.
I think that's like a different thing. So I think it's easy. Even I'm guilty of this. I think it's very easy to be like, hey, like I'm chill with gay people, I'm chill with trans people, I like some of them, as people, I want them to do well, et cetera, et cetera. Versus if my son was like, hey, I think I go by she her now. It's like we're gonna exhaust every other possibility before
I mean,
committing to
all
this
you gotta
path.
do is take him off social media and move high schools.
Well,
That'll
that'll
fix it.
be that'll be one of the steps, right?
Yeah,
So,
so I think when it comes to let's look at the whole. Okay, let's say there's let me say that it is biologically possible, which is not, um, because yeah, I'm a geneticist. So there's a study that's showing that trans women have similar brains to females. It's like
mhm.
10% more feminine than the average male brain, right? So
Okay.
it's 90% different than a female brain. So they'd be like in the craziest top percentile of female brains that are the most masculine. But I think when it comes to technology, it is going to be easier to upload your consciousness to a sex bot like an android that has a functioning android punyeti, my word for vagina, than it will
Uh-huh.
be before, hey, let's grow an entire female reproductive tract in a lab and then transplant it into a man and then also do a regimen of hormone control so they menstruate every month where they're basically functionally a woman. That is it's gonna I think it's gonna be easier to go into an android with a robot puniti than it is for us to get the
Mhm.
transplantation technologies and endocrine technologies. It's like, hey, they're basically the same thing.
So here's something that maybe I'm, you know, a few decades before the nuclear bomb. I'm the person who's saying the nuclear bomb isn't even possible. But
Yeah.
I think the transfer of consciousness is going to be a huge gap to jump, and I think that you can replicate AI. I think is going to get super advanced over the next couple of years. I think eventually we'll have AI that passed the Turing test. I mean, ChatGPT seems to be doing okay as far as answering in coherent, grammatically correct sentences.
Just don't ask it about white people.
Or crime statistics. But the the but the point being, like, I think you'll be able to have that machine that's able to regurgitate things. And then I think that also it'll become better at uploading like personality quirks, like, promiscuity or temperance or all that kind of stuff. You'll be able to program in personality traits into like an AI branch that replicates human
Mhm.
stuff. And I also think you'll be able to, from like film, you might be able to upload like the digital version of memories that affect a certain behavior if it gets good at translating those memories. However, I think actually transferring the meat and the energy that's deposited in this meat into an android will be hard. So you could actually probably get an AI duplicate of me in like 200 years. I don't know if it will actually physically be me though, rather than a
Yeah, no,
digital copy.
my point was, saying that we're going to be able to change biology of a fully developed man to be a woman is as like preposterous or crazy of an idea as the other one I told you. They're both
Okay.
crazy. But I'm just like I think they're just as far away from each other from us.
Okay. Yeah, my only counter to that would be I think that like CRISPR is relatively around the corner where we're going to be genetically engineering people probably within the next century, but I don't think that that's going to help trans people trans easier. I think that's probably going to eliminate trans people, where we're probably going to identify like the endocrinological profiles and the genetics that correlate with transness, and then we're going to gene edit those people out of the
Maybe with
pool, and it'll
some
effectively be different people.
I mean maybe with some it's hard to really talk about this in depth because the US likes to do all the fun research overseas. They
Mhm.
pay foreigners to do the research we banned in the US, like this in-depth genetics research and human genetics research. It's my understanding
Mhm.
that once you can actually direct CRISPR to target what you want to target against the hurdle, it's just like it will kind of sometimes just put shit wherever, it's like, oh, we took out one of your, they call it anti-tumor factors. We took out one of the genes that stops you from getting cancer. So like you're getting estrogen now, but also you got cancer everywhere. Let's say we fix that. It's just the base pairs. And when
Yeah.
it comes to genetics, the base pairs, like the actual code is I mean, it's half, maybe it's less than half. It's more about everything on top of the genes. It's called epigenetics. You know, what genes are open, when are they open, all these different factors. And I kind of use epigenetics to argue against single motherhood. Um, you know, because it's like it's the same genes, but the expression of the genes are different. So daughters raised without a father in the household, they on average have their first period a year before daughters with the father of the household, but the genes aren't different. There's something affecting the genes. Their environment affects the expression. And when I was talking about that, I remember Hunter, you know,
Yeah, basically
basically
trying to
insinuating I'm
insinuate
a
that.
groomer. He's
Yeah,
just
and
like,
it's like,
ooh, why do you care so much? It's just
no,
like your daughter's gonna be a thought.
but I think there's, yeah. So you just did what exactly what I was going to say. So so I think there's mean territory where you use like science as an indictment of the behavior of people, which by the way I don't really have a problem with. I think we should be judging and critiquing each other because in a liberal society, the state is not going to intervene unless you're committing the most aberrant and harmful of behaviors. So
Mhm.
that means that the culture has to be relatively self-regulating, where you apply social pressure to each other to act as good as you can. So if you're saying like, hey, it's bad to be a single mother, here's all the statistics that correlate, here's all the negative things, and somebody hears that and they're like, okay, I'm not going to be a single mother, then you know I think that's like probably a positive outcome. I think something that Lauren Southern brought up though, which I agree with, is that our society is so filled with broken people who have either failed themselves or been failed by the culture, that those people, when they hear you criticizing the outcomes of their life, they will reject anything else positive you have to say because you're
Mhm.
indicting them for that like negative behavior.
Yeah, well, there's the said I was being mean, which is, yeah, me saying Hunter Avallone's daughter is going to end up being a thought that is mean. Is the carrot and the stick for the people willing to listen to an actual argument and evidence and such, which are very rare. They can look up the study about how daughters have their when their periods come, when the first time when they don't have a father in the household. For everybody else, they get the shaming language because everybody can understand on a basal level. I don't want my daughter to be behind a 7-Eleven giving out sloppy top for $5 in 10 years, right? It's like it's shaming. So I do a little bit of both. And people say, "Oh, that's an ad hom. That's an ad hom." It's like, yeah, I know it's not an argument. You know, me saying that,
I am
Hunter
not trying
Avalon is going to
to.
get cucked by a camel. That's not an argument, but
Ugh.
it's funny and it's we talked about it.
I saw that and that was yeah, that was tough to get through. But
Did you see
the
the other camel videos I played?
no,
Oh,
so I saw the nice one. I thought you were like, hey, I'm gonna play a nice one and then a mean one, and I skipped the mean one because I didn't want to see whatever the fuck happened. And then I fast forward and then I saw the Discord DMs. I did watch the other streams.
I think the mean one was I was showing a camel like throw some guy by his head.
Okay, that's not too bad.
No,
I
yeah,
was
no, it was like me. It wasn't anything crazy. It was like,
I know you can't really show like a camel show or a donkey
yeah,
show,
yeah.
on YouTube. So I
No,
wasn't
no,
expecting you to
never,
actually show something, but I was wondering if you were
never.
gonna like show the prelude, and I got kind of worried.
No,
Um,
I showed camels in cars like whining or camels. I showed a five midgets do a relay race against a camel. That was good too.
nice, very based. But the okay, so being me. No, and by the way, like if I'm bringing these things up, this actually it might sound like I'm criticizing. I'm really not because I remember the conversations that I used to have on the middle school and high school bus in the
Mhm.
thousands, and they were fucking brutal. Like, if you're, you know, if your dad isn't home, if people think you're gay, if your ex girlfriend was a sloyd,
Mhm.
you know, all that kind of stuff, everything got called out. And yeah, it was like fucking vicious. Like, some days you didn't even want to, you know, get on the bus. But then what happened was one of two things happened. You either let yourself get your shit kicked in repeatedly, or you came back and you started punching as hard as you got it. And if you started punching back as hard as you got it, then what basically happened is you built your esteem, you built your self respect, you beat your coherence of self. You were able to criticize other people. You were able to target your attacks against people who deserved it, and then hold back against people who didn't deserve it. So I do feel like, you know, maybe we could put some bumpers on the social experiences of children. But I do think that adults ultimately need to be able to deal with the most aggressive rhetoric and not be total fucking pussies about it. So I'm only criticizing it because it's not something I would do, but I don't think I'm not going to lose any sleep over you aggressively making fun of other people.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, yeah, no, it's not everybody's style, and there's like red pill channels that will talk a lot about what I talk about, but they're talking about they're just laying out the arguments and they're doing this stuff, and after you listen to I don't know 100, 200 red pill videos, like okay, I get it. I want to be entertained a little bit, so
Yeah, it gets
I try to
dry.
go for like 70% entertainment, 30% education.
No, 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 and just listening to somebody like line out the ideas can get pretty dry, and I might be a little bit of a drier person as an entertainer myself. So no, I totally get it. And yeah, and that's kind of why I reached out is because the shit talking was very reminiscent of my teenage years.
Mhm.
But then I guess so we kind of hit everything that I was looking to hit, which was kind of like what does red pill mean to you, all that kind of stuff. Do you think that you're politically agnostic? I know you were saying that you took a political compass test and you were kind of centrist, but like, do you find yourself more on the libertarian side where you don't want to be taxed out the ass? I heard you were talking about the bachelor's tax. Do you think you kind of land on the more authoritarian right wing side where you think that like more social things should be enforced by the state? What's kind of your politics, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we already live in a pretty authoritarian government, except, the people in charge are groups of families that have no incentive to care for the US citizens, right? They're groups of
Yeah.
super rich people that will buy senators and congressmen, and they have islands, they have mega yachts. They don't care about you, they don't care about me. Whereas the authoritarian I would like is like someone who views the USA as his family's legacy, and then at least he has an incentive to improve the country. I don't think a US emperor would ship all the factories over to China, but a bunch of rich businessmen who own congressmen definitely would because they make more money. So we live in the most fakest and gay authoritarian state that ever has ever existed because we don't even know who's in charge of us.
I've heard some of these arguments reminiscent before. Oh, actually, let me ask this question because this would cut to it. Are you religious or secular?
I'm religious,
Okay. Christian, Jewish, Muslim.
Protestant, so yeah, Christian.
Okay. Yeah. Then yeah, the so my argument against this are I believe in the republic. I feel like I'm a Roman who is sitting in the republic that's about to collapse into the next Caesar. I feel like Donald Trump was our lame attempt to replicate Julius Caesar.
That's so bad. It's so weak.
it
So
was
weak.
it was a
People go, "Oh, you're
very
a Trump
weak.
guy, right?" And I'm like, "Trump is the weakest." Like I would tell people,
Yeah.
I tell my lefty friends, I don't like Trump because of his border policy. They're like, "Yeah, me too." I'm just like, "Why don't we just mobilize and send the troops door to door and deport them all?"
Yeah, and they're like, no,
I know, right? They're like, it's just, or it's like, it's like there's a
wrong
meme.
direction. You see, wrong direction.
There's a meme. It's like, Spider-Man. It's like I'm somewhat of a scientist myself. It's like a
Yeah.
dude. It's like what's that guy's name? I forget the actor's name. Anyhow, famous actor, Spider-Man
Uh
man.
huh.
He's like in full SS garb, and he's just like, the banks have too much power, and we need to have free healthcare, and fight for the average person,
Uh
and
huh.
go back into banks. But it's just like, and it's like some liberal woman. It's just like,
Oh
and
yeah.
he says, I'm somewhat of a socialist myself, right? So it's so funny. Yeah, when I'm talking to commie chicks,
Yeah,
it's
they're
so
all for the redistribution of wealth and the prioritization of the well being of the body politic. Yeah, but that's actually funny. So I'll share this with you because I'm trying to spread it as far as possible. It seems like a lot of people use the term fascist, but they don't really understand it. I myself am not a fascist, but I've listened to people like Keith Woods and Cultured Thug and read Giovanni Gentile and Benito Mussolini and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really two things. It's political corporatism, which is where you treat the nation state as a body and you try to push it towards optimal health. So the state, if you were to like analogize it, you got like the feet, the legs, the balls, the ass, you got the stomach, you got the
California's the asshole.
right, exactly. So you try to optimize the health of the asshole by giving it metaphorical colonoscopies every now and then.
Yes.
But the problem with fascism is kind of you can analogize minority groups like Jews and Mexicans and black people into not parts of the corporative body, but like antigens. Am I using it incorrect? Am I trying to sound too smart?
like foreign
Um,
bodies.
yeah, like foreign bodies. So then you want to
Yeah,
get rid of them, right? That's like the where corporate political corporatism can go awry. And then same thing with flexible authoritarianism. Flexible authoritarianism is just kind of the way that like fascists view politics, where they don't care if they get elected, they don't care if the king appoints them, they don't care if they come through parliament, they don't care if they come in a revolution. All they care about is that they ultimately end up in power and then advocate for the political corporatism, which is why it often devolves into a dictatorship. And then fascists also don't view conflict as bad. They view conflict as part of the inherent human experience.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I kind of when it comes to like, oh, chronic, are you a fascist or not? It's just like the differences between different dictatorships is so minute. Like,
mhm,
what is North Korea better described as a dictatorship or a monarchy? Or do they had to be called a king to be a monarch?
right.
I would even say the early Roman Empire was, if it's just about directing, like corporate interest for the betterment of the state, like I would that meets the definition of fascism.
Mhm.
I don't think a lot
And
of
they did
people would.
have it. They did have flexible authoritarianism as well. That's
Yeah,
actually sorry for ranting, but
I'll
you're
go on.
triggering my autism.
That's right.
The but this is where fascists will actually argue that a lot of societies that have the veneer of republicanism or democracy or whatever are actually fascist, or the politicians in particular are fascist in spirit. Because if
Hmm.
these institutions weren't standing in the way of the politicians, they would just do whatever they wanted to do. And so it's only the like kind of social constructed or social constructed barriers that keep these things in check. And so I'm more of a Republican myself. I think it's better to kind of think of the political corporative body, but then design rules that are hard to break. So as many people as possible can live in relative stability for prolonged periods of time. But I also understand that republicanism is inherently unstable because it's about 50 to 100 years behind the legislation that the people need now.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to I haven't really, I actually haven't talked to any fascist YouTubers. Um, I get called fascist a lot. I don't think I've ever. Most fascism supporters are like white nationalists,
Mhm.
and they don't really like me, and I don't like having them on the show because the first thing they do is scream the N word, try to get me to lose my channel. But I think if fascism is just, government is controlling businesses, like at what point is it, is regulation considered fascism? Because there's been businesses that have been destroyed because both parties are like, no, no, we can't have them here. So I don't know. I wouldn't consider the US a fascist state. I kind of even consider it like it's just an open market economy with the
Mhm.
people saying the regulations, just trying to get as much money as possible.
No, I'm with you. I think it's in oligopoly or an oligarchy. I think it is, like you said, a series of uber rich families who don't necessarily care about the interests of the nation state of the United States. They just want to optimize the system to their own ends. And on one hand, this is kind of what the founding fathers, as far as I can tell, they understood that the nature of humanity was selfish. And so as a result, they said it's better to have multiple selfish parties fighting over the levers of power and for the levers of power to
Hmm.
not be so strong that you can collapse the society instantaneously. So on one hand, it seems like their intent is being fulfilled by how difficult it is to collapse the United States. On the other hand, I do think that there's a lot. It's easy to say that philosophically, and then it's another thing to watch like the United States depose Central American governments and execute people for thought crimes in order to keep like bananas and bat poop cheap. So I think it's yeah, it's one thing to philosophize and it's one thing for people to die for it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to talking about US politics, and it's like, the horrible things we've done to other countries, I kind of separate the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right. I'm kind of like, if the if the US had an emperor, guess what? All those
Mm-hmm.
Central American states would be territories and we'd be getting that shit for cheap. But no, no, it's just we need to make sure the corporations are making money. We don't care how the citizens in the US are going to profit from this. Let's go kill people over there so these companies can make money. I think the last American war that was fought that actually helped us out was I'd probably say the Spanish American War because we got the Philippines and Cuba for a little bit. But besides that, all the other wars useless.
I have a different perspective on this. So and again, I'm trying to spread my worldview as much as possible. So I don't view the United States as a national corporative interest. I think it has an international corporative interest which you can criticize, which is effectively the United States has created and maintained a $65 trillion global commercial empire. This was probably 5 years ago, so it's probably even bigger than that. But if you look at like us and our allies, us, the entirety of Europe, we obviously claim hegemony over Central and South America, even if we don't use them a whole bunch. We have Asian partner states, all that kind of stuff. If you add up all of their economic activity, it's roughly $65 trillion worth of economic activity out of like a global dollar amount of around 100 trillion. Like the only people that I view as rivals are like Russia, China, Venezuela, and I'm trying to think of a few others, but North Korea. But anyways, so the point being that if you look at our military engagements, they're not really to protect the nation state of the United States, or else all the troops would just be deployed to the borders of the United States. What our troops do instead is they protect the $65 trillion global commercial empire. That's why we have like naval flotillas patrolling the seas of the Indian Ocean and Asian oceans. This is why we have troops in the Middle East and North Africa that are right next to strategic petroleum bases. This is why we have military bases in Europe in order to counter any kind of like Russian influence in Eastern and Central Europe. So we're not really protecting the United States. We're more protecting like this giant network of countries that we trade with and exude influence over.
Or we're protecting the rich people's money. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
And by extension, like cheap products of the U.S. So, I mean, the buying power here is a lot better than, buying power in the Philippines or Thailand or where these passport bros go. But the question is, like, how much longer can it go on in
Yeah.
combination with the fact that young men have no reason to sacrifice for the states anymore? Like, if dudes aren't getting land, wives, families, any of that, every revolution of violent conflict can be traced to a large population of sexless, unmarried men with no family ties.
What
And we
you
used
just
to
said.
talk about this in go on, go on.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting. Finish the idea, but I
I'll
want
say
to.
we used to talk like if you just look at how we talked about, even the mainstream media talked about large groups of unmarried single men getting no
Yeah.
sex and have no land. They'd be like, "This is why Assyria fell. This is why Libya fell. This is why all these revolutions happen." Like, and there are all these analysts are like pushing it. But now you talk about sexless single men in the West. They go, "Haha, incel, you're a terrorist," and
Yeah.
that's dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you. I got a woman in chat who does not. Huh? How about living for learning new things and travel?
Are you streaming on your channel?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait. What she said, how about living for learning new things and travel? You know what I
Yeah.
think of? Let's
No,
just call
so
her Beck. Let's
don't
call her
don't dunk on
Bessie.
her too hard. But sorry, go ahead.
Bessie. When a woman tells
Yeah.
me she likes to travel, I just imagine her on a pogo stick, and every time she jumps, it's a different ethnicity of the penis she's riding. So, I mean, yeah, woman, go travel. I don't care.
Well, yeah.
Enjoy your life.
So no, so what I actually agree with here is if you look at it, these are broad analyses, right? But when you look at the broad analyses, basically having an entire population of sexless, materially underprivileged men, it correlates with higher levels of societal violence. And then not just that, I think that a lot of the jihadism and terrorism and all that kind of stuff that's in the Middle East and North Africa is precisely because of this problem. If you actually look at the poverty rate in Saudi Arabia, it was around like 35 or 40% in 1992, which is when like a lot of these people were like radicalized into joining the jihadist organizations, and that was also when like Osama bin Laden was kind of becoming big. So you have two worlds. Let's imagine Osama bin Laden. He's raised in a society in which he can find his wife, get married, play Xbox. There's no war. He has good access to food, and he can marry and have a couple of kids. That's a world in which Osama bin Laden, although he did have 3 wives and kids, that is still a world in
I
which.
think we're talking about his message, right? Because the
Yeah.
leaders of these groups, they're always fine. The leaders of the top of any hierarchy has no problem getting women.
The
It's
foot
just that his
soldiers.
message wouldn't be well received by the men around him because they're too busy taking care of their families.
Yes, and so what I'm just agreeing with you and taking a long time to do it, but I think it's insanely dangerous in the Western world to say let's do the promiscuous thing where, Chad and Tyrone, they're able to use Tinder in order to bang every woman in and outside of their range. And then there's like 30% of the male population who gets no player consideration whatsoever, but they see this happening where their future wives potentially are going to bang Chad and Tyrone before settling for them.
Mm-hmm.
Then the jobs are so poor where Americans are effectively getting subsistence paychecks that they can't even afford the families that they try to create. And so I think when it's a recipe for disaster, and I think the people who are in charge of our society, both spiritually and materially, I think they're totally asleep at the wheel. And as long as they can stay in really nice, guarded, gated communities with decent security guards, they don't give a shit if the rest of the economy and culture goes to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, there's a couple, there's a couple another things here. Is like before, like let's say the guy. I don't think the guys before would be looking at the woman that would marry, like, oh my gosh, she had a boyfriend. Oh my gosh, she had all these guys that were with her. Now guys are becoming aware of it, which is why the manosphere's gotten so big. You get grifters like Andrew Tate. You get dudes like the Quartering talking about it. You get guys like Black Conservative Perspective using my catchphrases in his videos. You get guys like Tim Pool talking about it. You get guys like Destiny and Hunter Avallone talking about it because it's so big you can't not talk about it anymore. And I guess the warning I have to a lot of these like Politicon YouTubers is if you're going to talk about Red Pill and high value, low value woman, you best have your house in order. I'm talking to you, Hunter Avallone. Hunter Avallone got cucked. Destiny's in an open relationship. He's getting cucked right now. Like anytime you have a debate on Red Pill with one of these guys, and I just go, well, I mean, you're in an open relationship. Every single man that respects himself that doesn't have a side instantly goes on my side. They're like, what? This guy with an open relationship is going to tell me how to live? Fuck that. I don't want to be in an open relationship. The
Well,
wokeness doesn't really appeal to young men that respect themselves.
yeah, and that's where I think no hymen, no diamond is a little bit too extreme. But I'm okay with like the philosophy or the principle behind it, which is I think that if somebody is like hyper promiscuous, they got 3 dozen body count, they've been on the carousel for a decade, and now they just want to settle because they're bored and they're tired of the carousel, and they're looking for somebody to pay their bills and have kids with. I don't think that somebody, I don't think a young man who sat there for a decade, working his ass off, putting himself through his career, maybe having 1 or 2 serious girlfriends, and that not working out for whatever reason. I don't think that that person can really enter into a relationship with that kind of gal as a peer. But I do think that if from 15 to 25, you're working to establish your life, and you find a gal who is also working to establish her life, and maybe she has a couple of serious boyfriends that she's serial monogamous with, but it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and you have a couple of girlfriends that it doesn't work out for whatever reason, I still view that as a potentially peer relationship where the experience is not going to destroy it, even if it's not literally no hymen, no diamond.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's that guy's choice. I get dudes writing to me. They're like, "Chronic, I found the perfect woman. She's nice. She's hot. She's wants kids. She's not lazy. All this stuff, but she has a body count of 3. What should I do?" I'm like, I'm saying no harm in the diamond, right?
Mm.
If you want to flip the coin for a 50% divorce rate and you think it's worth it, go live your life. I'm not flipping that coin, right? So like,
Well,
she
what's
could be
the what's the divorce rate with for virgins? Out of
a
curiosity.
virgin. If a woman is a virgin at marriage, there's an
Oh,
18% chance for her to get a divorce. If she's
okay.
had one partner before her husband, it jumps up to 42%. So just one partner, right, is
Right.
like you're over doubling your chances of getting divorce. And I guess another maybe maybe you're saying this because you have that nice kind of relationship with your wife where you respect each other and such. But for me personally, I will never see a woman as my peer. If she doesn't submit to me, I'm not interested in forming a family with her. So like, like
Yeah,
that's
that's
just how I
something.
see it.
No, that's something we can dig into too. So we're complementary. Okay,
Yes.
so we're not. I'm not a master and her a slave. but we are complementary in our roles. So we've kind of gone into the more traditional route. You know, I'm working, I pay the bills. She's got kids, or no, she doesn't have kids. We have kids. Jesus. Uh,
Uh-oh.
yeah. No, okay, hold on. So before we meme too hard, my
Oh,
son, and I'm not trying to be sensitive, but I want to make a
no, that's all
point.
right. That's all
But
right.
both of my kids are white. They're blue eyed. They're brown haired. My son has the exact same teeth that I do. My first
Sounds
son,
like you're a white supremacist.
a little bit, but then and I am joking, but and then my second kid. So my first kid is as talkative as I am, same personality. He lights up a room. He's really funny. He's really charming. He's really sensitive, but he's really cool. And then my second kid, I also kind of have like a quiet, emo streak or whatever. And my second
Mhm.
kid is like quiet and emo, and I have some heartburn issues. And my second kid has reflux. So like I'm just like holding him as he's like puking his guts out, and I'm like, we are one. We are the
Both
same
have
spirit.
heartburn at the same time. Adorable.
So yeah. So anyways, my boys are my boys, and lucky for me, there's very few doubts about paternity. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. The but getting into kind of like no hymen, no diamond, but also peer relationships. I work, I pay the bills, I take on a lot of responsibilities. I'm responsible for security and kind of like where we're going, what we're doing, all that kind of stuff when it comes to like big familial shit. And then she is more responsible for maintaining the house, taking care of the kids, all that kind of stuff. And we're really fortunate. For the past couple of years, I got a corporate job that she hasn't had to work pretty much
Mhm.
since the beginning of COVID. So we're really, really, really blessed in that way. But I think you do have to look for compliments, not master and slave, because these days everybody's a slave.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider asking a woman for complete submission to make her a slave is similar to being a slave.
Uh
And
huh.
that's a lot of women will basically they'll be like, you just want a slave or you want submission. That's slavery. Let's say your wife, I'm gonna assume you don't live in New York City. Let's say
No,
she's like, counterpoints, we need to move to New York City. We need to. What would you say?
fucking why?
Like let's say, oh my family, I have a sister or a cousin that moved there. We need to move there. Who makes a decision? You can't compromise on that. It's not a 50-50. Someone has to make
No.
the call.
Yeah, I think that ultimately we would be making the call in consultation, but it would have to be a goddamn super serious situation for me to do
Let,
that.
let's let's say
Like a
she she's
dying
she's
family
she's
member.
irrational about it because anybody wanting to move there is
No,
irrational.
we
She
no
will
we
not live for a
actually
reason.
we actually did this by the way, and I'm not trying
Mhm.
to dog anybody in this situation or dog anybody who has a different style of relationship. We purchased my childhood home. I'm actually in my childhood home right now. My parents moved to South Florida. They have their own property that they're retiring in, et cetera, et cetera.
Wait,
And
wait.
mhm,
Your parents sold you your childhood home?
yes,
Oh, total boomer move.
I know, I
Hey,
know.
pay for your home. Pay for your home you grew up in.
Yeah, no, but hey, listen. Compared to the market, it was 30 to 40% less than the market, so
I mean,
I'll
that's
take
still
it.
nice. I just can't
Yeah.
imagine. I can't imagine like selling my property to my son. But it's
Well,
just I'm not trying to dog your parents, saying just different values there.
the what I would say it was they sold it to me for 40% below the market value,
Hmm.
and also now they know that their grandchildren are growing up in a good neighborhood with good schools, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh no, they did better. They did
So
better than most boomers. No, I
yeah,
completely understand. Like
yeah.
compared to the average boomer, they're doing great. For me
But
and what I envisioned, though, I'm like, no, I couldn't do that.
well, they. I'm probably not going to be owning multiple properties unless my YouTube career really takes off. So
Yeah,
I'll be leaving my property to my kids, but I'm not. Anyways, I don't want to get too far afield.
that's right.
The
Continue.
Yeah, so the point being that we actually did go through that where we're in the perfect neighborhood, but the house is a fucking mess. The floors are wrong, the walls are wrong, the paint is wrong, the bathrooms are
The
wrong, everything's
walls are like
wrong.
breaking apart because you've been acid reflux puking on them for like your whole life.
Exactly. Yes, precisely. So basically, we're fighting about like, well, we could sell this thing and then move someplace else, and then we basically fought about that for 6 months, ultimately coming to my side of things. But that's because all of the things that she disliked about the property were manageable. They were fixable. And so
That sounds very stressful.
it was. Of course
Whereas
it
like
was.
whereas like for me, I'm just be like, submit, stop the bullshit. I'm fixing this. Right. So like
Mm,
it's not 6 months of like bartering and fixing and arguing and like going to sleep angry at each other, that kind of stuff. Like, and I'm not, none of
yeah,
this
you're
is
not.
insult to you. I'm just saying for me, I'm just like, it's clear that I have 51% of the vote, right? And that's how I describe it. I got 51% of the vote for all decisions. She is 49%. I don't give a shit about kitchen decor. I don't give a shit about flower arrangements. I don't even really care too much about most of the wedding stuff or, a lot of things that she's having 100%. But stuff
Mhm.
like this house is a great value. I know this is good for our kids. Any arguments that she has, I'll listen to them. But if she can't convince me, I'm not willing to like go through 6 months, like an extended process of arguing about what we're doing. It's like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So what I would say is we got through that turbulent period, and I
Mhm.
resolved a healthy chunk of her immediate concerns. And then as a result, through making it ours by redoing the floors, painting the walls, redoing the exterior, getting the garden under control, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
you
it
proved to her that you were
ultimately
right through your work. Yeah.
it ultimately became our home, and now we're pretty happy. And despite the fact
Mhm.
that our state is hot as balls, if Florida like average temperature becomes like 105 degrees, we're probably moving someplace else. But besides that, we're probably living
Well,
and
you probably
dying
got
here.
cacti outside, don't you?
We got what?
You probably have cacti outside, right?
No, 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 no. Well, actually, you know what? We have cacti, but we bought them.
Oh,
We're
I just kind of
yeah.
assumed you live in the desert.
No, 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 no. I'm in Florida, so I live in a tropical jungle.
Oh, so the state bird is the mosquito. Oh man.
Yeah, pretty much. And I live in what was formerly known as Mosquito County. So, so yeah. But
Oh yeah. I, I'm trying to convince my wife in 10 years to stay in this nice Florida home, and she's just
uh,
like, Chronic, look outside. And there's a mosquito, like mosquitoes, like trying to like use a hammer to break in. Like,
well, the
okay,
good
no.
the good news is the conquistadors and the Europeans and everybody who moved into this place basically slashed and burned the entire underbrush of the jungle canopy. So now we live in a giant oak forest that
Mm.
it still has mosquitoes, but you can kill them by,
Not
for
as
instance,
bad as like Jacksonville or like Orlando.
it's a suburb of Orlando, but the basically like we put bat boxes outside, so literally
That's what's saving you the bad boxes.
well, it's an awesome way to spend our time because we also have a trampoline, and so my son and I will chill on the trampoline and literally just watch the
You need
bats
to
like
put some
zip around, just
cam
killing all the bugs.
you need to put some cameras in the bat boxes and make a bat YouTube channel. That would pop off. I mean, there's dudes that make I'm serious, hundreds of thousands of dollars from like trail cam YouTube channels.
Well, I am a big fan. I think they're pretty cool. So I'll definitely add it to the things that I need to buy. But what I would say to get back to the negotiated relationships,
Mhm.
um, I'm sympathetic to people deferring to gender roles that have happened before, particularly for people that it works for. So if there's a woman who finds that she is her best in a traditional gendered relationship, and then a man finds that he is best expressed through a traditionally gendered relationship, I think that's great. But I do think that marriage ultimately is a contract that can be romantic and should be romantic, where like you love your wife and you want to protect her and you do some vows and you wear some fancy clothing and you get your families together to celebrate the marriage. But I do view it ultimately as a contract. And in my video, I kind of criticized Hunter for no longer valuing his contract and defending his contract. And the contract is I will give up a part of myself. You will give up a part of yourself. We will become a new thing. And specifically for me, and I think most heterosexual married couples, we will we will sacrifice ourselves for the sake of our children. And
Yeah.
that's what the contract effectively says. So it can't be, at least from my perspective, it can't be I am enforcing the contract to my desires because they're my desires. It's I am enforcing the contract to what I believe is correct because I think that's what's best for me, for you, and for the kids.
No, and I agree with that. I just think that when it comes to making decisions overall, men are better judges of making decisions than women, especially when it comes to a marriage. So, like, let's say it's 51 decisions a man makes is right and a woman's 49. Well, those two wrong decisions, I'm doing whatever system I can do to make sure we have as many good decisions being made for the kids.
Yeah.
And, it's like, you can say that's, dudes will say, oh, that's unreasonable. It's like, if my wife comes to me and gives me a reasonable argument of why this neighborhood's better than that neighborhood, I'm not just going to ignore her. I'm going to listen to the argument. But if I still disagree and she disagrees with me, someone has to be in charge. And, when I'm talking about marriage, a lot of my standards, it's you look at divorce. Divorce is the worst thing in the world to happen to children, besides videos of your mom banging a camel being leaked online 15 years later. But, I don't think most people are dealing with that. Sorry for you, Hunter. I think it's divorce, which is why the no harm and no damage thing is just vital to my philosophy. Because a lot of people
No,
push back on it.
No, I think there's something to be said for having an aesthetic and a philosophy and all that kind of stuff, kind of like a North Star. The only I don't even have a contradiction. My only thing is I would encourage, not that we're like, I don't know your age but I've heard you talk about your profession and all that kind of stuff. But I would just say, if you were my friend, not that we're friends, but if you were my friend and you found like let's say you found the perfect gal, and she was 24 years old and she'd been with one guy, and but besides that, like, you have the same interests, she wants kids, she wants to settle, she hasn't ridden the carousel, she has her degree, she comes from a good family, like all that kind of stuff.
Let's make her more attractive and say she never went to college and she's 18. Now we're
Okay.
talking about now there's an argument there.
Okay. Well, I hope you're for the sake of undead chronic children, I hope that you're a little bit more flexible with your standards. But but
No,
I
I'm
do
saying,
understand
like,
them.
there's age,
Mm-hmm.
there's career, and there's body count. 24 is the oldest I'll go, but
Yeah.
not a virgin and 24. You
Okay.
really she has to squat like 3 to 4 times a week. Like, she has to have a lot of like the things that don't really matter to convince me.
Yeah. That's actually really funny. So we talked a little bit in DMs, and you were saying that you were curling a pretty high curl amount, which I am impressed by. The highest I ever got was like 50. So the fact that you're saying that you're curling 90 pounds. Do you mind if I ask your height and weight?
I'm 4'2" and I'm 420 pounds.
Okay, but built like a brick fucking shithouse.
I'm a dwarf. I'm like, I got like 2 beer bellies and I'm like 4'2" and I do a backflip as I steal your girl.
Okay, are you dwarf maxing? Are you growing out your beard? Are you carrying hammers with you to different places?
Driving,
Yeah.
like I'm calling cops elves when they pull me over.
Get...
It's a whole shebang.
Okay, fair. Gimli, is that you?
Yeah. No, I don't give out exact height and weight measurements because either way, it discourages guys that are shorter than me, and it encourages people that are taller than me. Whereas, like, one of my friends from high school is like 5'2" and he's married with 5 kids. It's those things, but still being a short guy is, like, people. What's the
No, it's tough.
Another argument those people will say is, how can you demand a virgin when you got a body count chronic? Well, how can women who are 5'3" demand a guy that's 6'2"? Because at least the women have control over the body count. Short guys don't. There's double standards when it comes to men and women because men and women are different. At least my standards: don't be fat, don't be post wall, don't hit the wall when you come to me, and don't have a body count. Every woman has the potential to get that. Every single woman born has the potential to get that, unless she's raped, right? Which is a horrible thing. But compared to dudes that are born 5'2", dudes who are born 5'2" aren't saying, "Man, I really wish I'm 5'1". I really wish I'm 5'2". Man, I was hoping I grew up. I'm short. So
I think you have to manlet max, and like it's
max, right.
Yeah, it's easy, or dwarf max if you're more masculine. So it's kind of easy for me to dole out life advice left, right, and center because I was able to do the military. I was able to do law enforcement. I'm 6'4". I'm 220 pounds. I used to be in decent shape. Now I'm more of a dad
Watch your
bod,
knees.
but it's
You
not.
better watch your knees, your giraffe. They're gonna start
Yeah,
killing you soon.
yeah, it's a little tough. But all in all, it's relatively easy for me to dole out advice that is a little bit harder for other people. But the advice that I would share is basically maximize everything you can, and then don't care about the variables that you can't. So basically, like if you can lift, lift. If you can work out, work out. If you can control your weight, control your weight. If you can control your body count or your discipline, control your body count or your discipline. If you can get a good vocation, get a good vocation. Like all those kinds of things, and then hopefully through maximizing all of these experiences that and variables that make you attractive as a partner, then you can make yourself the most attractive person that you possibly can, and then get within. I think there are ranges of what people can achieve from an attractiveness standpoint. I think with guys who have a lot of money, those ranges obviously increase. But if you're not taking proactive steps to control the variables that you can control, I don't think you really have. You do have a right to complain, but nobody's going to listen because you're not taking any proactive steps.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a difference between the black pill guys that are just like, well, I got no job, I don't go to the gym, but it's because I'm like 5'5" and I have a horrible face, and this is the West is over, right? That mean,
Yeah,
but
billions must die.
I still have sympathy for dudes because back in the day, American men didn't have to spend 12 hours in the gym. They didn't have to be in the top 10% of earning brackets. They didn't have to be able to like entertain random people for hours on end to convince a girl to date them. The standards keep on going up in the West. Like those dudes going to the Philippines, and that's why the passport bro thing's happening,
Yeah.
right? It's like if you can't do this in the West, it's like, well, yeah, maximize. I'll tell guys, maximize yourself, and then go get a woman that appreciates you overseas. And there's some American women that might, but you're gonna wait a long time till you find one. You might be too old for her.
I think there's something important there, which is basically, look to yourself first. Don't wait on anybody to save you. Life is going to pass you by if you keep on waiting for other people to save you, and then also don't have unrealistic expectations. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you're a 2 and you're working at McDonald's and you don't lift weights and you don't have any kind of financial income, you can't expect an 8. Like the 8 is never going to show up. So, and if you get an 8, what's probably going to happen is she's going to have like a crazy body count. She's going to be insane, schizophrenic, BPD, drug addiction, debt, tattoos. Yep.
No, there's a scientific study showing men enjoy sex the most with mentally unstable women. I still have to respond to it. It's one of the
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by these findings.
I'm like, what? They proved it? I'm like, no.
Yeah, but like, okay, but Owen Benjamin does have this great quote where he's like, the definition of insanity. I know Owen Benjamin himself is insane, but he's like, the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, where you're looking for like the perfectly sane woman. But the truth is, to some extent, all women are insane. So it actually takes a brave man to look his wife in the eyes and just be like, I commit to your individual flavor of insanity for the rest of my life. And yeah, on fun days, I remind myself of that.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is if the dude's a 5, he's not going to get a 5. He's not going to get probably a 4. He's going to have to settle for a 3 or a 2. That's how female standards are in the West. It's just they're concerned with the wrong things, and when they finally learn what's important, they got a body count that would make Stalin blush, and they got 2 eggs left.
But I think that like there's something to be said though for there being a variable +2 or -2 based off of wealth and personality. So if you're a 5 and you're a millionaire, you can probably date above your class.
I guess what I say is when I'm not talking about the physicality, I'm talking about
total package,
sexual market value. Yeah, so that including that.
Okay, yeah. Whereas I am like isolating attractiveness and then leaving out some of the other things. But what I would say is that if you think of yourself like physically as a 5 as a guy. I think you can max up or down 2 points, or min down 2 points based off of like your personality, whether or not you're funny, whether or not you're rhetorically gifted, whether or not you got money, whether or not you have a good job, whether or not you have a good family. all of
Mhm.
these variables are also added into, for lack of a better term, the sex, or maybe it's just a good term, your sexual marketplace value. And
Yeah.
so as a result, you shouldn't just, look at your physicality and be like, oh, I'm ugly as fuck. I have no hope. Like, no, you should control the variables that you can control.
Now some guys are like, I'm a five. I'm going to the gym an hour a day. I don't want to. I'd rather go like twice a week. I'm grinding my brains out this career. I'm doing all this work to get a wife, and they make
Mhm.
it. I got a six pack. I'm a five in the face. I don't know 5'8", whatever, and I'm making 100K a year. And the best I can get is a 24-year-old college girl with a lot of debt and a whole lot of foreign genetic material embedded into her vaginal canal. They're like, F that. I'm either gonna go passport. It's not worth it. They don't want kids that bad. They go MGTOW, or they just smash and dash, or they just, I'm not, relationships aren't, and those dudes that are still able
Uh,
to get women, but they're refusing to build families, they're just as much of a threat to the system as the incels are.
that was something that I was gonna bring up that I was hoping we weren't gonna disagree with, but I didn't know how you felt, just because I know you're looking for your lady, but you got high standards. The I felt like being promiscuous or being not a passport bro, but smashing and dashing or MGTOW or something like that. I view that as an exacerbating force on the cracks and collapses on the system. So, so if you do go your own way, which by the way, like if you go paint miniatures, I collect Warhammer 40,000. So if you go like paint miniatures and you chill and you hang out with your bros and drink beers or whatever, like I got no hate in my heart for you. I just wish that you would kind of play the game and have some kids and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I got no hate in my heart for people like that. But the people who are adding to the promiscuity and who are smashing and dashing, adding to girls' body counts, et cetera,
Mhm.
I do view them as, on one hand, complaining about the problem while simultaneously contributing to it.
Yeah, so that's another thing people will tell me. They're like, "How could you want a virgin to be smashing and dashing?" A little known fact to most people out there that may not know this: valuable virgin women don't go to a club, get drunk, and go home with undead chronic. Those women don't do that. It's they're already ruined and they're giving away their value for free. Um,
Uh,
so it's like, oh, I'm sure, like, oh, if average body count for a female went from like, I don't know, 5 to 50, things would be a lot worse. Sure, but why do I have to care about them? I
yeah.
can't. I have no authority over them. If I could control their lives, they'd be married at 18 and having kids and chilling at home and, maybe like programming. I don't know, whatever productive activity they can do from the household. But I'm not. They're free, and when women are free, they fuck up. They go out there and they all chase the tall guy at the bar wearing a leather jacket. They go, "Oh, your green skin looks so cute."
So my issue, um yeah, my issue with that though is I'm more of a communitarian. We were talking about like political philosophy earlier. I
Hmm.
started as a libertarian, which is
Bless your
individual
heart.
rights.
When did you
um
stop being a libertarian? What year do you remember?
yeah, like 2018.
I think. What is it? No, it was. I kind of like libertarians a little bit. But in 20, I think it was 2015, they had a libertarian national convention in
Mm,
Orlando. And someone was running for like secretary. It was this fat guy. And he stood up to the podium and he like started playing some music. It's like, hey guys, like let's get loose, let's dance. He's just like doing some goofy dances, and it's like, oh, this is wholesome. And this is cool, all buddy buddy. And then he starts stripping.
yeah.
He strips down to his whitey tighties and he's wearing a tie. And then he goes to the mic. He's like, "Sorry, I lost a bet," and then runs off stage. Um, that's when all my I was like, "No, I'm over it."
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw that, but I think it's still on YouTube. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, no, and I would say it was a similar issue for me. So, what was it? It was I actually really liked him as a candidate, whoever the libertarian guy that was actually doing well. And then he didn't know whatever that city was in Syria that was getting the shit bombed out of it, and he's like, "What? What's that city?"
Was it Aleppo?
Aleppo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, which by the way, like that's not that big of a gaffe.
They'd be like,
Like
every
actually,
city's getting bombed. Like, come
yeah,
on, man.
yeah, but like that's actually not that big of a gaffe. And if he kind of came back and he was like, "Hey, listen, I wasn't paying attention to geopolitics. You know, I kind of studied it a little bit. Here's my answer, et cetera, et cetera." If he kind of went on the offensive, I would have been still pretty pro him. But at the same time, it just seemed like he took the optical hit, and then he was just okay, like getting stoned and doing interviews because he never took it seriously that he could have any kind of impact. So I was like, well, if you're not going to take yourself seriously as a candidate, I'm not going to take yourself seriously
I'd
either.
probably rather have some random just getting stoned every day in the White House than what we have now, because he wouldn't listen to all the handlers.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and so somebody in my chat says, okay, what about women who don't want kids? I don't, WGTOW. You
I
want to
just
go paint
no.
miniatures? I don't give a shit.
Hey, guess what? I'll treat you like a man if you want to
Let
be equal. Oh, we're equal. It's like,
you're,
hold on,
you're you're gonna fist fight them, or you're gonna be bros?
I don't really fist fight random dudes. Funny
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
No, I'll treat you like a man. I don't view you as a sexual object or conquest. Now, if you're at a bar and you're getting drunk, and I'll bet sure, but I always wear protection, so no kids or anyway. But if you don't want kids, I have
yeah.
absolutely no reason to date you, to give you resources, to marry you, and that'll be a waste of your time.
Okay,
I respect you. I'm not wasting your time, so I'll treat you like a man.
nice. Then all right. Then getting back to libertarians. So the
Which also means if I see you getting jumped on a subway, I ain't doing jack shit.
do
I
you
only
live
do
in a
that
major city?
No, I'm just, and I always, it's this, it was a popular story because everybody's getting like graped or like beat up on a subway or the
Uh
Jordan
huh.
Neely. It's just like, my, my vanilla skin is privileged enough. I never go on goddamn public transportation, but let's say outside of a bar, I saw you getting jumped.
Uh huh.
I might call the
Not your
cops if you
problem.
want
Not
to
gonna
down,
get
but
stopped or
yeah,
shot over it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah. So, I
So
mean,
yeah,
and I'll
the
just finish up. Like, she shouldn't get offended by that because by saying you don't want kids, you are absolutely revoking the entire point of tradition and relationships and chivalry and whatever. So, like, don't feel entitled to my protection.
right. Well, the libertarians lost me when they were like, oh, kids shouldn't do heroin, and then like the crowd booed, and then they were like, I think people,
I would
yeah,
love to dress up like a random kid, like foster a kid for the day and have him dress up like a crackhead. And he's just like, he has a shirt. It's just like, I want heroin. I'm like, raise him up. I'm like, ah.
yeah. That's actually some of the people in the crowd, and then also they like booed when they said like, we need driver's licenses. They're like, boo. So like, I listen. I understand that you might not think that you should have to have a license in order to prove that you have the right to drive a vehicle safely or whatever the fuck, but you're not even starting from reality if you think that like kids should be able to do heroin and we should ban driver's licenses. Like you just
I mean,
can't have a conversation with the rest of the population.
they're just not practical, right?
Yeah.
And like who's the big libertarian, bro? Gosh, Luke from We Are Change. He's the guy that goes on Tim Pool and just like, you're a statist if you're not a full libertarian. I'm like, do you know what happens in full anarchy, Luke? He's just
Yeah.
like, oh, we have the non-aggression pistol. Like, no, me and my boys roll up on your compound and take all of your shit. I'm like, but you're not the
Oh,
non-aggression. No, give me that shit.
no, I actually I met a guy and I really sincerely believe him because he was built like a fucking Viking. And he was like, "Hey, do you know why?" And he's like former military veteran. He became a cop, and
Oh, that's
then
not me. That's not me then.
he got fired recently, or not recently, but he got fired like a year into the job because him and his wife got into a bar fight, but they were both beating somebody else up. Like him and his wife were both
That's a
fist
ride or
fighting
die,
someone
bitch.
else. Yeah.
Ride or die.
So this is the kind of guy you absolutely want in your corner if you're getting into some shit. Whether or not you want him making judgments about lawful conduct, maybe not so much. But I kind of asked him. I didn't even ask him. I think he said this unsolicited. He was like, "Yeah, the only reason why I'm not like a Viking, like murdering everyone and kidnapping everyone and murdering some like people the way like Genghis Khan did, is because of the law. If there was no, if we lived in like an anarchic system or whatever, I would absolutely start a war band
I
that
mean,
would try to take over half the country."
it's the law, but it's not like the fact the law on the books. I tell people this all the time. You can't, because when it comes to divorce, um, you can't out alpha your local police department. They got more guns and more dudes than you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
and if you do get in a shootout with all your boys, the local cops, and you happen to, get a, like the perfect kill streak or whatever, then they're gonna call the feds on you, and you're not gonna
yeah,
do it there, like, So it's just like, yeah. When I say I don't want to get divorced, I don't want a bunch of dudes in blue. This happened in Denver. Some guy's ex-wife identified him as robbing a bank, despite the fact he had no moles on his face, but this guy did. But she called in a tip. He was sleeping in his house at night, and he woke up to a flashbang and his arm getting broken by a bunch of SWAT team.
yeah.
Just imagine waking up to a flashbang and your arm gets broke. And yeah, she
No,
didn't get it.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's part of the thing is I don't. It doesn't matter how strong you are. A fucking pistol is gonna overcome that shit. Especially if the guy's like more than 5 yards away. If you get mag dumped, you're going down pretty much.
Mhm.
So communitarian. I keep trying to get this point out, so I'll just get it
No, go
out
ahead.
now.
Go ahead.
So libertarian is like hyper individualism. I don't like libertarians because of the way they represent themselves, and then also, I think I no longer believe in individualism, and then collectivism I also don't like because it says like, well, the collective group is more important than the individual, so we're always going to like invoke that as rhetoric in
Mhm.
order to get you to do something. So society will benefit if you act in this way, that way, the other way. And oftentimes what happens is petty tyrants use the greater good to dictate what other men should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
So I think the reality of the universe and actually what's a good way to conceptualize society is communitarian. If you're born, you're not born alone. There's a family who takes care of you. If you die and you're a relatively decent person, there's at least medical personnel who will see you out, and there should be family who see you your way out. So what society is actually a negotiation between the individual and the collective, and it's how the individual conducts themselves that dictates how the collective treats the individual, and then it's also the way the collective treats the individual is how much the individual is willing to sacrifice on behalf of the collective. So again, I'm being like a straight centrist, but I can't get away
No,
from
it's
this as
it's
being
it's
fundamentally true.
it's a sliding scale, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense. There's probably positions that more lean to being for the individual and more that lean for the community. I think the problem now is it's not, we have, I don't even know, hundreds of different communities in the US.
Hmm.
And so some communities are getting hosed for the benefit of other communities who are getting funded.
Right.
And one of the biggest, I used to say this argument a lot when I started my channel. Single mothers are taking tax dollars to feed their kids, right? And if you're a
Hmm.
single mother, unless you're a widow, I consider you a sexual failure, right? You messed up. You chose the wrong guy. Either you let a bad boy or a horrible man put a kid in you and you gave him kids, and then you realized he was a bad guy and you freed yourself, or you ran off a good man. So and the only exception is widows. Widows, yeah, but that's like less than 5% of single mothers, probably even less than that. So they're taking tax dollars from men because men are the majority of taxpayers, women are the majority of tax consumers. They are taking money from me to mitigate their sexual failure. Now, my money is part of my sexual marketplace value. So I am losing sexual marketplace value to alleviate the stupid decisions women have made. How about we do the opposite? How about single mothers, in order to get free housing and SNAPs and all the other government programs they get, how about they have to fuck one incel a week to stop them from shooting up a school? It's ridiculous. It's fun. It's a joke, right? It's funny. It's a joke. Like, I don't think I'd ever push for that policy.
It's,
I'd rather not have the welfare,
but
but
right,
it's
but
equal.
it's a
It's
public
equal.
service, ladies. It's a public
Honestly,
service.
like, we need to fight the incel menace and force single mothers, if they want to get tax
Uh
benefits,
huh.
they need to stop these school shooters at the root of their penises.
Uh huh. Right. Okay. Yes. I.
It's fun.
I'm
It's funny,
no.
but it's also
I'm
like it kind of, I think the
no.
logic is there.
I do think that I've joked with Stardust about this, where Nick Fuentes, Nick the Knife Fuentes, he's
The
the
knife?
leader of the Groyper Trad Catholics and
You say
America
wait, Nick?
First,
You
and
say Nick the knife? Why? What's that
yeah.
nickname? Why they call him the knife?
He's supposed to be a relatively good debater, and then also he likes to brandish a knife on stream sometimes.
Oh, I would
So
call him Nick the Blacklight. Where's the jizz stains? Fuentes?
okay,
Did someone have sex in here? I need to smell it.
right, yeah. So, but Nick, I think I've DM'd Stardust about this a few times, where I'm like, listen, Nick said that he's relatively interested. Can you just like absolutely annihilate America first by hooking up with Nick Fuentes? Because all it would take, Stardust is an Indian gal. She's very nice. She's very funny.
Mhm.
And Nick is interested. All it would take to like annihilate America first is if she would take one for the team and hook up with Mr. Nick Fuentes.
To
So
bang him. Oh, I thought you meant to debate.
uh,
I
yeah,
don't think he'd be down for that, honestly. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen this Indian chick before, but I think
he
he's kind of set on like a white Catholic girl.
yes, he's expressed prohibited interest, kind of like a taboo love story. So,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
anyways,
the would fall apart. They would basically be like, time for
yeah,
your America First daily penis sniff test. Just like this has been in someone.
well, and that I think it would be interesting to have the leader of an anti-miscegenation traditional Catholic, like Christian nationalist movement, date a secular Indian gal. I think that'd be pretty fucking funny.
Yeah,
Ah,
they had some articles about like Republicans and Democrats who are married. I don't think they have a lot of those couples anymore, like politicians.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
mhm.
I don't even know his whole shtick. I've only seen him speak when he was talking on other people's channels, and they didn't really talk about what he believed. I don't know. I just don't, after the cat
It's
boy.
Christian. It's Christian nationalist. So race isn't everything, but it's not nothing. So
Okay.
he doesn't want the races to mix because he views these as like separate parallel cultures in the American system.
Mhm.
He thinks, as far as I can tell, that people of the Jewish persuasion, in an attempt to protect their collective interest, mass import immigrants into the United States so they have cheap tax cattle to protect the state of Israel.
Mhm.
And then that same thing with the military. It's not about oil. It's not about the $65 trillion commercial empire. It's about Israel in particular. And then also the way that Americans kind of seize back their collective political power is by aligning themselves behind Christian nationalism, having parallel racial cultures, but not cultures that intermix, and then basically banning immigration and reasserting the domination of Christianity over Islam and Judaism in the United States. As far as I can understand, that's pretty much it. He wants a Christian empire.
I think he did pretty good explaining it, at least what I've heard from him. I mean, I agree with some of those points. Some of them are just, they're debatable, but I don't get the vibe. And I've reached out to him multiple times. I don't get the vibe he really wants to get challenged on any of those points. They're just kind of self evident to him. I mean, I haven't heard his debates, but I kind of assume he operates like Destiny. Which, speaking of Destiny, when I debated him 11 months ago, him and Lauren Southern, I was calling Lauren Southern a feminist, and he was taking offense at that. And then what got leaked from Carissa is that Lauren Southern dumped him 5 months after that, and then he started calling her a feminist like a month
What
after
do you
she dumped him.
what do you mean by feminist when you're referring to her? Out of
First
curiosity.
wave feminism, right? It's like cancer. Like, would you,
Mm.
let's say someone has like a small skin cancer on their forehead. They have cancer. Yeah, they have cancer. You got to treat it. It's not the same as like stage 4 um, lung cancer, though.
So
Very
yeah,
different.
so how would you define the first stage? As like what, equal rights under the government and the right to vote, or
I
what?
like to use history. So first wave feminism was voting. Second wave feminism was working. Third wave feminism was no fault divorce,
Mm.
and that coincided with the pill. And then I don't know if we're on fourth or fifth. We're definitely on fourth at least, maybe fifth, maybe fourth wave is like affirmative action, and fifth wave is I don't know. But I just when I call people feminists, it's kind of like oh man, that's what kind of take is that? Or that's, when you think feminists, think of like the worst. When you think cancer, you think of granny dying in the hospital. I think the dude who gets a lump on his prostate at 45 is just as important when we talk about cancer as the woman who's dying at 83 of a lifetime of smoking from lung cancer. So they're both feminists.
So I joke about eliminating the right to vote for women, but I don't think that's practical. And realistically, I think a lot of men are shitbags who contribute to the ills of society. I mean, we've discussed how even people who supposedly have a bunch of descriptive criticisms about the world that are accurate are still dog shit people who help perpetuate the cycles of negative bullshit in our society. So if I was dictator for a day, I think I would institute, like, you have to take a citizenship test in high school. And I also think that I would mandate like 2 years of service. So you would either serve in the military, you would serve in like the Peace Corps or a global charity, or you would serve, I joke about this as well, but like 2 years in restaurant and retail. Because I'm pretty sure like anybody who works 2 years of restaurant and retail, they've seen some of the most shitty parts of humanity. So,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to argue a lot more about removing the 19th, but you made 2
uh,
points. One is the practicality, one is whether or not it would actually work. The
well, and also
practicality,
shitbag men. I'd like to hear your
well, I
contention
mean,
with that.
it's I think the argument there is, are more men shitbags, or more women shitbags? And if there's a woman who's not a shitbag, but she sees some sad emotional advertisements online to vote for a shitbag candidate, and she has good intentions, but because she's a woman, she's more likely to respond to emotional marketing. Is she still a shitbag for contributing to the shitbag politician? Right. So it's like,
Hmm.
guys they kind of wear the fact they're assholes on their sleeves. Women will just be manipulated by mass media and social media to turn into shitbags or support shitbags. But the
Mhm.
practicality, you're dead on. It's never going to be repealed. There's going to be shots fired all across the states before women lose any rights. To be honest.
Mhm. Um, yeah. Then, um, yeah. So no, I mean that makes sense. And then obviously I'm talking about dictator for a day, basically.
Hmm.
So there's plenty of things that I would do that nobody would like if I was dictator for a day. So
What's the worst one you do?
what's the worst one?
Yeah.
I would probably try to do like a Singaporean civic nationalism and try to do a Tito, like from the former Yugoslavia. I try to incorporate that kind of culture where it's like we come from different things. Yugoslavia, for those of you who don't know, it's like Serbia and Croatia and Kosovo and all that kind of stuff. They had that big civil war in the '90s, and then Singapore. They have a lot of like Malaysians. They have a lot of Han Chinese. They have a lot of different people from different countries. So
Hmm.
I think the United States is not capable of only nestling their nationalism in the Northern European white identity. I think that if you wanted to have some kind of unity in the United States, it would have to be like a pan ethnic nationalism that includes Hispanics and blacks and Jews and
Well,
the gays
if
and
you
all
want
that
to
kind of stuff.
do it, if you want to do it without mass violence, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I would absolutely prefer to have a kind of like civic nationalism without mass violence.
But
Um,
what kind of hardcore nationalism would be able to take over without mass violence?
I
Period.
want well, yeah, so then that gets
Right?
into my next thing. I think that the northern United States north of the Panama Canal should be a single political entity. And then so Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, I think that, in order to kind of resolve the border crisis, but also go to war with the cartels and get them under control, everything north of the Panama Canal should be like the northern United States of America. And then I
Mhm.
think that we should help facilitate the southern United States of America by basically having Gran Colombia. That was Simon Bolivar's idea. He wanted to have like a very large unified state of South America. I would love to do a southern United States as well. And then between those two political entities, try to guarantee the technological and economic supremacy of the Americas over Eurasia for the next millennia.
Mm. I think the first thing I do is, what is it, the 22nd of June? If I was dictator
Mhm.
for a day, for the next 10,000 years, the date is going to be the 22nd of June.
Okay.
So it's not dictator for, instantly. No, I'm the leader, period. Let's see what else we would do. I'd probably hold an absolute fraternity style banger at the Supreme Court, and we would just be spending our time ripping up all the cases because those precedents don't mean anything to me. That'd be a fun time. What else would we do? Oh, immigration.
Yeah.
I would have a very liberal immigration policy for certain populations. If you are a
Mhm.
woman between the age of 18 and 24 that is
Uh-huh.
under a BMI of 26, we will grant you American citizenship if you marry an American man and have kids in the next year. And you know what?
Do they have to go to like goth and emo conversion camp
No, most guys don't have those. Most guys don't have those
fetishes?
preferences. But you will see women in the street marching and goose step to fight the evil regime
Yeah.
instantly. Because
Yeah,
women
yeah,
love
yeah.
women love immigration when it's a bunch of military aged men. I mean, just look at Europe. But as soon as it's a bunch of women, which there's a funny story when Henry Kissinger went to see, was it Mao Zedong? Was he like the
Uh-huh.
long term dictator in China?
Yep.
Mao Zedong's literally just like, hey, can I send 6 million Chinese women to the USA? And Kissinger was just like, thought it was a joke, but Mao Zedong was serious.
Yep.
That dirty, disgusting devil
Said
said
no.
no. Said no. Can you imagine how different that we would have the United States of Hapa and be a beautiful place? But
Yeah.
no, we had to deal with fat American women now. So rip.
That reminds me of the one meme where it's like white supremacy and it's the Fallout skull as it's getting shot in the
Yeah.
head, and then on the bullet is like Asian women.
Asian woman. Yeah. Never ask a white supremacist what race his girlfriend is.
Yeah.
Asian woman, Latina woman. I see a lot of dudes with black women. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so no, I think what is frustrating to me, and I'm happy as much as my chat has not been very happy with some of the extremities of this conversation. What I deeply resent in our current Twitch and YouTube political space, but also it seems like in our culture, is this absolute pandering to like the pussy aches of people getting their feelings hurt and
Mm,
being completely incapable of even saying that you can criticize people. So
yeah.
for instance, like I think that 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, or whatever, half the people that are involved in these like sexual dramas, they wouldn't be criticized on the internet. They would be dragged outside and people would throw rocks at them. That's what would
Mhm.
be happening 500 or 1,000 years ago.
Yep.
So to say that like okay, I think it's good that these people aren't being hit with rocks to the point that they get brain damage or die. Maybe that's a good development. I think that saying that you can't provide social pressure to try to criticize these people into no longer engaging in destructive behaviors, I think is cultural suicide. So that's my while believing in liberalism as a form of government that like tolerates people of different perspectives to not murder the fuck out of each other. I do
Yeah.
think a critical failure of liberalism is the inability to criticize people who engage in legal but very destructive behavior.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has different groups they're allowed to criticize, right? Um, I mean, just open up the left wing. Just white guys, right? Straight guys, Christian people. Yeah, look at my channel. Thoughts, single mothers, cucks. So it really is a question of who is really worthy of being criticized. I mean, Nick Fuentes, interracial marriages, he criticizes. Gay people, he criticizes. Atheists, he criticizes. So she's like, what is who should really be criticized? I think most of the people I criticize, it's not because of what they're born with, how they look, it's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so women, they can't even. There's going to be trad wives listen to this, or that will listen to my content, and they were a virgin at marriage, they have kids, they stay at home. But me roasting single mothers with labias that look like a triple roast beef from Arby's, that will piss them off. They'll be like, "You can't say that about women." Um, my response is, "I don't," and this is gonna piss more people off. I don't give a fuck what women think. I don't. Look at human history. Unga de Bunga time. I come into your village. I put all your men on stakes. And what do the women do to survive? The legs open up like a DeLorean. I don't care what they think about policy and this kind of shit. I've dated commie girls. I've dated non-political girls. I've dated Democrat girls. And after a year or two, they all end up saying the same shit. Women shouldn't vote. Wow. They just submitted to the strongest man near them. Crazy how that works. So, women getting offended online about these opinions. Since I hide my face, I'm not allowed to call it my company. So, I kind of like it.
Well, yeah, I'm probably going to cover the Lauren Southern, the previous 5 years or whatever, but I'm going to bring up an important point, and I think different people have different social roles. So I think the leftists, they call it a diversity of tactics. So for me, I can see some rhetorical value in saying like, "Hey, if you fuck up your life, we're going to make fun of you," but I also think that there's some value to what Lauren was saying, which is basically like, it seems like conservatism and the right wing, they have an ideal for what the ideal life is. But when people struggle and fail to fulfill that ideal, they just take like a big old fucking shit on them instead of saying like, hey, you fucked up. Since you fucked up, dust yourself off and keep striving for the ideal. And that is something that I see as like inherently Christian. Christianity comes with the concepts of original sin. It comes with the concept of sin itself. It comes with the concepts of like redemption and forgiveness and confession and atonement. And so I would, if you want to make fun of people on the internet, whenever I see that you're making fun of somebody that I know or that I think is going to be funny, I'm going to tune in. But I also think that there has to be a space on the right wing, because I do identify as right wing, where we say like, hey, this is what we want from you. And you tripped and fucking, you stepped on your own penis and smacked your face into the mud. Now get up, wipe yourself off, and do the best you can out of the situation you have.
Yeah. If let's talk about Lauren Southern, if you're depending on the right wing community to placate the fact that you are a sexual failure, you're an idiot. Like, you're an idiot. Why do you need people on the internet to give you praise? You know who needs the acceptance of randoms on the internet? Feminine men and women. I think majority of people on the internet hate me. I don't care. I don't care. I understand what you're trying to mean. Like, there should be some like levels of forgiveness, areas of forgiveness. Yeah, she should go back crying to daddy for that. You're not going to get that from me. Her life proved my point. Women can't handle sexual freedom. She banged some fed and now she's a single mother. She's dancing around with Destiny, and her little sister's dancing like a thought on Twitch. Like, who the hell? Who the hell thinks their daughter should listen to her? I'm not letting my daughter listen to her. I don't think people's daughters should listen to her. She's just, the purpose she serves for our society is she's an example of what not to do. And she spent so long, and she spent so long sucking simp blood. I'm a white woman. I'm blonde. I'm a right wing. She probably made millions of dollars from single men wishing to date her. And she chose a fed that didn't keep their family together. And now she's a single mother, and apparently she's poor. I think that's a perfect example of, like, don't listen to women on the internet unless you want to listen to, like, cooking or sewing or entertainment for gaming, or they're talking hard sciences. But like, a woman saying, I'm a trad girl. Look at my trad life. This is what men and women should do. Oh, no. If you're a trad girl, you're not on the internet. Like, you're not showing your face. You're not making content. And this whole divorce fiasco is hilarious. She sued my friend Sandman, who's also anonymous, because he was talking about a article that Milo Yiannopoulos wrote about her. And so if Sandman went to court, he would lose his job. He'd get canceled. He had people send him death threats. So he just took the video down. She didn't sue Milo Yiannopoulos, though. Didn't sue him. They must have made some backroom deal.
The trying to extrapolate out, though.
Sorry, I went off.
No. I'm okay with it, because basically I think there is a corner of the internet that says what you say, whether it's Hunter or Lauren or Destiny or any kind of major public figure, even Tim Pool. You ultimately reap what you sow. So Tim Pool talks about the failure and the degeneration of the West. But, as far as I know, not to be overly critical of him, but he hangs out in a compound, he smokes weed, and he reads the news every day. So I don't
He
know.
smoked weed? I didn't know that.
Well, to be honest, I don't know whether or not he smokes weed. I honestly just assumed that a
Ah,
libertarian bro would.
I mean, he could smoke weed. He keeps on talking about how he doesn't drink, and then he's drinking like twice a week. So, like,
Hmm.
if you drink, just say you drink, bro. Just say you don't drink a lot. But he's like, I don't really drink alcohol. And then
But
he's like
the
drinking during all these like all these other shows and guest meetups. It's like whatever.
Yeah, so but the point being, like, if you're saying like the West has fallen, and then meanwhile you're not trying to have kids, build like a small community of like-minded individuals who can support each other during rough times, then you're basically profiting from the West falling. So I mean, we all have our roles to play, but I also think there's a little bit of something that I don't like there. Then when basically I can point out all the logs that's in everybody's eye. That's what I can do. But
Mhm.
but I think that for me, anyways, the social role that I would want to fill is if there was somebody who was in Hunter Avallone's position where he married a woman who wanted something completely different, and then she ends up doing some really wild shit, either like without his knowledge. With his knowledge is worse in my estimation. But let's pretend for a second without his knowledge. I would rather say like, hey, you fucked up, you simped, you picked the wrong girl, you destroyed your life. Now what? And I want to do the same thing for single moms too, because they're human beings and they're going to raise children. And so if you alienate that next generation of kids, then they're going to perpetuate the negative cycles that we're already dealing with now. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to
Yeah, when it
drag some
comes
people
to,
back.
I think when it comes to Hunter Avalone, the reason why I go so hard against him rather than some guy, because that's probably happened to tons of dudes out there.
Hmm.
Their wife is setting up being escorts, abusing camels. But for Hunter Avalone, he has spent years calling red pillars incels, flexing on his trad life, attacking my beliefs, calling me a beta, whatever. I have absolutely no empathy for him. Zero. And for single mothers, if they love their children, they would give them up for adoption. But
I'm pretty sure. Aren't you
there are
pretty sure the stats for foster kids are infinitely worse than single mom stats?
it's different for foster kids and adoption, right?
Uh
Adoption
huh.
is you're playing the role of the government trying to place them. If you just drop them off at a foster house, those are pretty brutal. I don't actually know which ones are worse. I would assume the foster houses are worse because you're surrounded by a bunch of kids without fathers.
Yeah.
But
Well,
or
I've heard you say this. You were talking about the kiddos,
Mhm.
whatever the archetypical names that you picked. But you basically said like, hey, listen, if you're I heard you say this. If you're a product of these families or whatever, you can beat the odds. You don't have
Yep.
to be a car thief or a sloyd or whatever. You don't have to throw your life away and repeat the mistakes of your parents.
Mhm.
That's kind of something. uh, That's something that I'm going to hit harder. I'm not saying you should hit harder. You should be a online comedian who shit talks fucking people who are hypocrites publicly. I think that's your niche to play. I think my niche to play though is to say like, hey, here's the ideal that Undead Chronic wants you to live. But if you find a 24-year-old with three bodies on her, but it was three boyfriends back to back to back that she dated for 2 years before doing anything with, and she has a degree but she wants to be a mother, it's okay if you guys are compatible for you guys to get married. You don't have to tell her to pound sand.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to flip a coin for it, yeah, sure. That's their
Yeah.
choice to flip the coin. Um,
Well, you do realize that even if you're at 18% for virgins or whatever, you're still effectively you're not flipping a coin. You're playing Russian roulette.
yeah, but would you rather flip a coin for whether you get a bullet or not? Would you rather play Russian roulette?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you in a few decades. My wife and I. She had a low body count. I was a little
Just
bit
make her
more.
listen to this stream and be
Uh
like,
huh.
"You cannot divorce me. You cannot do that. This
This guy will
green
make
skin
fun of
bastard
you if you get
will just be
divorced. We
so
can't
upset."
divorce. No. But we got two kids. They're happy. They're healthy. We have a game plan that seems to be in line with each other. We have a vision for the future. So I'm hoping we can make it. So we're flipping the coin, but I think we're gonna do okay. But
Yeah, well, the flipping the coin is if you
mm,
look at one variable, you're just looking at sexual partners before marriage. There's tons of other variables which I haven't seen studies on, right? So I'm sure the fact that she's staying at home and you're working, the
mhm.
fact that she already has 2 kids and whatever little minor factors is not as bad as a coin flip. It's just if I'm just looking at this one factor, it's a coin flip. So don't take any offense to the coin flip.
No, 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 I'm not. And also, that's something you just said something super important that I kind of want to hit with other people, I guess, is there are other variables. So like whether or not you're, and this isn't an excuse, by the way. I'm just saying other people should consider these variables. Whether or not you're good communicators, whether or not you have good self awareness,
Mhm.
whether or not you have like shared religious values or shared political values. These are also variables, some of which I think have been studied for marital outcomes and dating outcomes. So just because you have the 50-50 or the 80-20 with just the mono variable of sexual partners, doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you shouldn't consider those other variables. That's just my general advice.
Yeah, no, it's more than just, you're not running around and like run up to a chick in a coffee shop. Yo, what's that hymen at?
Yeah,
that's not that's not the
I
basis of a
don't.
relationship.
I don't know if that's going to be a good opener either. But the yeah, so we're about to hit midnight probably in the next 5 minutes or so. I do want to answer some chat questions, and then I actually hear my kid waking up a little bit, so I'm probably gonna have to get him a bottle in a
Counterpoints
minute.
Junior, you're ruining the YouTube game over here.
Little points, and little points too. But was there? So just to summarize, like no hymen, no diamond, the red pill arena, you accept the title of red pill, but there's a lot of phonies and hypocrites in the space. You love dunking on people who are hypocrites and shitbags who you've seen rise and fall.
Or
Is
just
there
cuckold,
anything,
or just cuckolds.
or cuckolds in general?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with the roughly 65 people cross-platform that I have on my end?
Hmm. I think orcs are the best army in 40K. That's all.
No, I play Deathwatch, so I love killing Xenos. But I do agree that orcs are the only people who are having fun in the
Yep.
40K setting. And
As long as they're painted green, I like them.
yeah, and I was gonna say, so there's two there's two things that I was thinking about that I like about your branding is okay. So having like the warband, correct me if I'm wrong. There's like a few creators who actually like identify as being a part of the warband or whatever.
I think it's 7. It's 7 than us.
Yeah, so you've created like not just a brand that works for you, but kind of like a collective brand to have a sphere of people. I think that's pretty cool. And then
Mhm.
also it kind of creates like a tribal mentality for the audience. I think that's pretty cool. And then two, picking an aesthetic and then sticking with it. So the orcs aesthetic, you can expand on that because it's almost endless. The variety of orcs you could have. You got Lord of the Rings orcs, you got 40K orcs, you got fantasy
Mhm.
orcs, you got World of Warcraft orcs. So there's a lot of art that can be generated and used for shitpost and meme purposes. So I'm thinking about I don't have enough like Imperium. I don't have any Imperial creators right now. But if I shift my community branding to the Imperium, originally it was Starship Troopers. I might shift to the
Mhm.
Imperium based off of this.
I mean, I think like the most important thing for any YouTuber, I mean, you show your face, so maybe it's a little bit different because you could always have your profile picture. I know, it'd be you like smiling or whatever, is to get some good art.
Mm-hmm.
If you and like stick with an artist that will keep the branding with it. I'm not sure, man. Like maybe you should just come up with like some kind of brand that can't, for Games Workshop can't come in when you're like 3 million subs and be like, give us half your money,
Yeah.
but it should blatantly be, you kind of like sci-fi, high sci-fi or high fantasy kind of stuff. So that it's like, oh, like you can talk a lot of 40K, you can talk Starship Troopers, you can do all that, but the art or whatever name or whatever you come up with, that's still yours. That's what
Yeah.
I'd recommend.
No, I think that's smart. And I'm pretty well entrenched in the Games Workshop setting, and
Mhm.
I've had a few emails with Games
Uh-oh.
Workshop legal,
Oh, no,
but
man.
but I've effectively told them like, hey, under American fair use, I am, I'm not breaking any laws, and if you need to see me in court in order to resolve this dispute, here's what I'm prepared to do based off of our conversations. And then if the court decision comes my way, this is what I would expect out of you going forward. And
Hmm.
when I sent that, they sent me a few polite but forceful emails.
Yep.
I've modified some of my content to meet some of their more reasonable requests. But if they want to realize the unreasonable requests, we might have to have a meeting in court. So I don't want to do that. I love the IP. I love the brand.
Yep.
But they are overly protective, even against people who love their universe. So it's a little frustrating sometimes to be a fan of something that isn't a fan of you.
Yeah. Well, hey man, it was a great conversation. Enjoy Space Marine 2, and
Thank
good
you.
luck with the kid throwing up.
All right. I appreciate you. You have a beautiful night.
Peace, man.
Bye.
Yeah, I didn't really think it was gonna.
So, yeah. So we have a few Warband Raiders, I think, over in here. So if you have any questions or concerns, so I'll scroll up, see if there's any at counterpoints comments. I'll answer all those, and then I'm probably gonna dip out. I did just want to do a simple stream, talk to UC. Go check them out. Like, I obviously agree or disagree. Excuse me. I disagree with a healthy chunk of his more aggressive takes, to put it tactfully. But I do think that as far as having, if you were on the bus and there was this mean kid who didn't sit in the far back because that's where the really cool kids sat, but there was the mean kid who sat like one or two seats up and he was like a football player or whatever, and he could just banter his fucking ass off and shit talk everybody on the fucking bus. And sometimes it was cruel to the point that you kind of cringe, but then it was also some of the things he said was so fucking funny you couldn't help but laugh. That's kind of the vibe of the channel that I was seeing, and also that was the vibe of the hunter coverage. So there's some stuff that's like so mean that I'm like, oof, like that's a little bit too cruel for my taste. But then there's also some stuff that's actually just legitimately fucking funny, and it's hard not to laugh. So yeah, so go check out UC Chronic if you want that kind of vibe of the school bus bully who is a little bit too mean sometimes, but also really funny sometimes. And it was a fun conversation. So yeah. So, and I'm happy I understand his avenue, because based off of him like doing the no hymen no diamond thing, him associating himself with Redpill, him associating with himself with some other creators, I really didn't understand like where he fell on the racial or religious or political lines. So as much as that might not have been like us going for each other's throats, I think it was a productive conversation for me to understand his little corner of the internet. So yeah. Ba 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 ba. Y'all are fighting about immigration. A healthy chunk of my regulars really do not like UC. Oh man, y'all are straight up not having a good time. And I'm sorry. Sorry if I exposed you to some aggressive red pill content that you weren't ready for. Yeah, you are lost in being whipped by women. You are a mama's boy. Interesting. You are intelligent counterpoints, but I'm sharper than you and beat you through experience. Senator Armstrong, you were like the biggest shit talker tonight. Feel free to share your experiences in chat. I would love to know about your personal and professional experiences. If you're married, divorced, have kids, military veteran, law enforcement veteran, you got a PhD, whatever, I'd be curious to know it. We got some agreeds in here. So some people were agreeing, some people were very not happy with the conversation. And just while I'm scrolling and looking for anything interesting to pull out, I think the Chud Logic Stardust Civil War needs to end. Stardust criticized Chud Logic for spicy chat, going through Elder Drazi's personal information and kind of sharing it with each other. And then Chud has been a little bit aggressive on the back end towards Stardust. I don't want those two to dislike each other. I think the space is too small for drama content creators to dislike each other. I really don't like that they're beefing. Such easy content with this dude. We all deserve a night off. This guest is not my favorite. Understood. Well, I'm sorry he's not your favorite. I think if men knew their value more, then they wouldn't have such problems. I mean, I agree with that. I think both on the high side and the low side, you know, men overestimate their value and underestimate their value, and self-awareness is an important thing. Stop using your kid as a shield for this combo and status. Well, you know, I have 2 kids. What do you want? I'm proud of them. I love them. There's a 99.9% chance that I am their father. And they're white and they're blue-eyed, so if you're racist and you care about that kind of thing, then you know, if you haven't had kids and you're schizo posting, then I've done more for the propagation of the white race than a lot of ethno-nationalists, despite not being an ethno-nationalist myself, so. You are foolish. Your big words don't impress me. Interesting. This gentleman is very interesting. We need prostitution legalized so we can avoid the bigger sins of inceldom, masturbation, racism, discrimination, and of the opposite sex. Incels don't talk to women of any race and dehumanize both. That's a hot take. All right, still scrolling, still checking out comments. How could men prepare for divorce? You and what army of your shitty lawyers versus feminist courts? I don't know. Soul Invictus says, I love your 40K vids, bro. Thank you. I really enjoy making them, so please go watch all of them. Harmony, why did you lose the beard? It's not anything in particular. I just got really scruffy and it was improperly kempt and all that kind of stuff, so I got a little bored. And I wanted to see what I would look like. I wanted to kiss my wife without having a carpet on my face. And so I kind of shaved everything except for the goatee, because there's nothing wrong with my chin, but you know, I wish I had that Henry Cavill jawline. Unfortunately, I don't. I have a sweet Irish baby face, unfortunately. So it wasn't anything in particular. I just got bored. Counterpoints. Have you ever watched the Animatrix, specifically the second Renaissance parts? I have. And I don't remember all of the Animatrix, but I do remember liking it a lot, and liking in particular some of the, like, the vivisections where the robots are, like, taking apart the human beings. It's pretty amazing. What does your upcoming schedule look like? DD the Schmay. So we have 2 more weeks of content where I'll be doing Reverie Roundtable and editing. You know, there will always be a weekly Warhammer 40K video. Tomorrow we will be doing Heated Hippie. It will be on the Hunter drama, but more specifically, like whether or not parents should participate in sex work. We do have a really good roster, so tomorrow's probably going to be a really big show. And I'm trying to think of what else, but realistically, that, Reverie, and then a few React Daddy live streams. But I might take next week off in order to finish Hell's Reach. We did have a gentleman by the name of Ken who gave us a healthy chunk of cash in order to do a review and breakdown series of the fan animation of 40K of Hell's Reach. I do owe him that work. I have shot 3 episodes, but next week I might literally just shoot the rest of the episodes and start editing and then release them every single day. So the politics people might have to take a break while the 40K people get a nice little treat. So yeah. You got some Muhammad spirit in chat. Well, you know, there is no God but God, and the Prophet Muhammad is one of his messengers. You ever heard a big bully saying that he isn't scared of getting a tough lesson? Yeah, I've heard that. His little corner sucks. God, you guys are so rude. To be fair, he's kind of rude too, but you know. And then, yeah, if you got donos or dollary dues, go ahead and send them my way. You know, I appreciate some cash. Because you're made your horrible week's points, sir. Yeah, what points are those, Senator Armstrong? I'm very curious. What part of my points do you disagree with? I would have liked to see him go toe-to-toe with someone on that extreme opposite end of him. Yeah. Actually having the warband go up against, like, feminists would be wild content. That would be wild. So maybe we should arrange that. That might be interesting. The conversation was generally fine. Shitposts and fun banter back and forth with disagreements. It was just chat that was annoying. Yeah, it happens. You had a bunch. Ericoda says you had a bunch of guys defending women's slavery in here, discussing barbarians. May they seek God. Yeah, seek God. Where's my Warhammer content? Well, I mean, you got some Age of Sigmar today, and it was the most hardcore episode of Age of Sigmar I've ever seen. So yeah. Do you watch any Stephen Michael Davis? I don't. But if I remember Stephen Michael Davis, he was one of the Black Kings of Red Pill before he died. So, yeah. It's not racist to want kids that look like you. I know. Racist. Who said that? Who said that? I'm half brown and half white. So are you just projecting? No. There are some people who are concerned with the ethnic identity of my children, and I wanted to reassure them that they're white. After a few days, that hair on the face gets so itchy I could never get past that. Also, when you shave after a while of having a beard, lots of people notice. I know. But I was tired of looking like Grizzly Adams. So, my bad. I can't afford 40K. Favorite is Assassin's Creed? Not really. It's okay. Senator Armstrong is a legit schizo. He lost the beard because he saw God of War and felt like a lesser man and couldn't live with his soy face. I'm Irish and masculine, just like Chronic, unlike you. Jesus, buddy. Relax. Dr. Zaya says, no homo, you look very handsome. Thank you. Western white women are shit. Mothers and even worse are as wives. The only ones that are worth it are black women. That's an interesting take. Anyone who says no homo is not only gay, they're a bottom. Jeez. Ericoda says, glad I could watch. My religious altar came out tonight. Love you, brother, and have a good night. Thank you, Ericoda. Appreciate you. Senator Armstrong, debate me. You can DM me on Twitter or Discord, and we can talk. Another fellow Griga. Yes. Yes. A mech warrior game with Imperial Knights, Red 473? Absolutely. That is so true. Senator Armstrong says, I was bullied too, but it sounds like you were projecting at this point. Other like Chaz, a fool in the warband, have bullied too by gentlemen like Chronic, but they grow up unlike you. Who are you talking to? I said it was funny. I said I enjoyed it. I said it was a little bit meaner than I wanted it, than I would do it. What are you talking about? Set it up with the leftist mafia? Yeah, it'd actually be pretty crazy. It'd be wild. Scuba Steve is a good lad. Nice. White women in the West like Lauren Southern. Oh, Jesus. Jerkin McDickus, relax. Whew. Oh, a little spicy tonight, chat. A little spicy. All right. Senator Armstrong, you need to fucking relax. You doing coke? All right. Okay. So we're caught up in chat. I am gonna go take care of my kiddo. He stirred a little bit, but then he settled. And yeah. I had a great night. It was fun. And it was a beautiful night. So thank you for hanging out with us. To the roughly 20 people on Twitch who topped out around 30, and to the roughly 40 people on YouTube who topped out around 50. I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. And I'm not even... Should I raid out? I should probably raid out. Hold on, Twitch chat. Stay here. Okay, Senator Armstrong, you are welcome to DM me on Twitter or on Discord. And we can have a conversation. But if you bring that fucking Spurg energy on, like, you better have, like, points. Like, things to say that are supported by other perspectives you have. Because if it's just, hey, you're a soy boy cuck loser or some shit like that, then I'm not, not gonna talk. I'll talk to you, but I'm not gonna talk to you for very long. So have a game plan of what you want to talk about is what I would recommend. Let me go to Twitch. Twitch people, please hang out. I do like rating people. So it's not anything crazy. I'm apparently not following Not So Erudite. Didn't realize I wasn't following her. Let's go to Creator Dashboard. Let's raid. Stream manager. Great channel. All right. All right. Parasocial love to you and yours. Have a beautiful night. I wish you well. Bye, Twitch chat. Love you, YouTube chat. Love you too, Ericoda. All right. You insulted me first, retard? What did I even say? Senator Armstrong, what did I insult you? Did I call you a schizo? Is that the problem? All right. He's waking up. I gotta go. Parasocial love to you and yours. Have a beautiful night. Bye for now.